is to share with them a magic solution. Is that you work with them to find together which is the right solution for their current level of vulnerability, exposure, and risk and hazard.
Why do you think then some leaders are still putting their energy into downplaying the threats of climate change rather than putting those sort of global connections into action and investing where it can really help people?
I don't understand why, because when you have something to do and you are not doing that, that is something I don't understand. And we have several studies provide objective measure that for $1 you invest in early warnings, you can get up to $10 or $15 on top of that. It depends on the country and depends on the vulnerability. But for me, it's not value for money. For me, it's human being. It's having a person protected. It's having a person engaged in a community to preserve the life of his or her kids, elder people, to protect them from a flood. That is real life. That is real humanity. And that is what I work for.
Have we forgotten about taking care of people?
Yes, definitely, yes. We say people-centered approach, but you need to walk the talk. The debates are becoming a little bit fragmented, sometimes hate speech.
What role do you think you and your organisation play when there is all of that disagreement between different nations?
Well, I try to find the agreement, that's part of my work also. And I think that WMO has been successful so far in finding the agreements and building from where we agree on top of what are the elements where we do not agree. And I would say that early warnings are not controversial at all. So that is a building block. And data sharing is not controversial at all, because you cannot forecast what will happen in Argentina, where I come from, without knowing the data from Chile. That's impossible.
Weather and climate don't have any borders.
No border at all.
You're listening to The Interview from the BBC World Service. Before we started the interview, Celeste Saulo asked me very politely if I could just speak slowly when I asked my questions. And I was immediately overwhelmed by monolingual guilt. This is the first woman from South America to lead the World Meteorological Organization, and I'm grilling her in the only language I have a reasonable command of. Regardless of any language barrier, though, Celeste is unrelentingly optimistic. She knows better science and improved forecasts can save lives. But I've watched the wheels of UN processes turn infuriatingly slowly in the face of a rapidly changing climate. And I find myself wanting the senior UN scientists to admit to at least some frustration, because some leaders are still arguing, even denying, the threat posed by climate change. Celeste doesn't seem frustrated, though. She just wants to get on with the job. OK, let's return to my conversation with Professor Celeste Saulo.
Your organisation, the WMO, announced that this year there's an El Niño taking place. So this is a climate pattern that pushes up global temperatures. First of all, can you just explain what is El Niño? Why is this an El Niño year?
Yes, certainly El Niño years come with a certain global patterns affecting both temperature and precipitation across the world. We know some patterns, but at the same time, every El Niño is different from one another. And this is expected to be a strong El Niño. We already know that by August, September, October, we will have very large anomalies in the sea surface temperature in the equatorial Pacific. It's using that information for anticipatory action.
It struck me that it was big news, particularly this year. I've been a science journalist for a long time, and El Niño sort of used to be a little bit of a technical or meteorological story that weather and science people were interested in. Now it's a global story. Why is it so important to share that with the world and share all of that information and forecast ahead?
We are not speaking about El Niño. We are speaking about hazards associated with El Niño that have social and economic impacts. And those that need to take decisions need to react to avoid those social and economic impacts, because we cannot avoid rains, lack of rain, or rising temperatures. We can tell the world that this is happening. And those that have to take actions need to take actions to avoid the impacts or to minimize the impact. There is a lot of evidence showcasing the impacts of El Niño on economy, on floods, on droughts, on food security, and several events. So it's about how we can showcase this El Niño as El Niño where the society was better prepared, and this preparation allowed them to mitigate the losses in general.
And some parts of the world will be affected more than others. Can you paint a picture of where is most vulnerable and what sort of preparedness you would really like to see being driven by this information?
Well, for example, let's speak about some areas in Africa where you already have impressive amounts of vulnerability and exposure. So what you need is just to make sure that first you gather all the relevant stakeholders. Let's say if you are concentrated in food security, agriculture, let's make sure that the Ministry of Agriculture, the ministry where the Med Service is reporting, the decision makers are aware of the information, and then risk managers as well. And then they prepare a plan, a contingency plan. They put resources ahead. They move the people. They make decisions. This will affect the west coast of Africa. It will also affect India. And of course, Indonesia is also being affected now already. We are building certain scenarios for the most vulnerable countries to make sure that we can prepare in advance. If you ask me about what kind of people or communities are more exposed, those that are already at risk and that are the countries under conflict.
And I want to talk to you a bit about the technology that's behind the power of that forecasting. Artificial intelligence is something that forecasters have talked about a lot, the power of that technology to improve forecasting. How much of a role is that playing when it comes to the strength of those forecasts, the accuracy of those forecasts, and how far ahead you can forecast and allow people to prepare?
Many lead centers in global forecasts are already running AI-driven models. This is already happening. AI also is helping us to combine different sources of information and accelerate the translation of complex forecasts into actionable instructions. And that is also something that expedites the decision-making process. So yes, AI is bringing a lot. You mentioned before the story about Malawi. Malawi is running an AI-driven model that is so cheap in terms of computational resources that can be run in the personal computer of a person in just a few seconds. So that brings more tools, but we need to always remember that the observing system is the crucial piece behind the AI-driven technology.
There's lots of pros and cons that get discussed constantly in the context of AI and its different applications. But of course, AI data centers are very hungry for energy, for water. That's something to think about too in the context of its use.
Yes, of course. When we speak about sustainability, we speak about all these elements. So there is always a balance between the good elements of a new technology, the not so good elements of that new technology.
I get a real sense of positivity and optimism from you in the face of confronting in your everyday working life the challenges posed by what you yourself have called the greatest global threat, climate change. What makes you feel hopeful in your role?
I understand that the world is not only about love and hope. It's about work. It's about science. It's about affordability and about rights and about people But I think that in that sense, I have the idea that the good of humanity is something that has to move you ahead and not the individual interests.
There are many people who feel engaged with and knowledgeable about the state of the climate, but feel a sense of pessimism and doom or a lack of control. What would you say to those people?
I would say that if they are knowledgeable about climate and they understand what we are exposed to, they have the responsibility to do something. Staying at home and being pessimistic is not a choice.
Thank you for listening to the interview. You'll find more in-depth conversations on the interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with Sumant Sinha, the founder of India's renewable energy company Renew, Executive Director of UNICEF Catherine Russell, and Film Director Rohan Kanawada. Until next time, bye for now.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Happy Tuesday morning for you. And what a lovely Tuesday it's going to be. Another high of 24 today in Winnipeg, sunny. And right now, though, we are sitting at a quite chilly 13. Actually, I almost thought about wearing gloves on my bike ride in today. It was pretty cold because it dipped down to nearly 9, I think, overnight or so. But the forecast, I got to tell you, it's like Pleasantville looking ahead. The next 5 days, it's the easiest forecast you'll ever see, according to Environment Canada here in Winnipeg. 25 from Wednesday to Sunday, sunny. So quite a lovely week and weekend ahead. We'll get the details for you across the province as well. But right now, let's say hello to the wonderful crew helping put together today's show. Jenica Sewell is our studio technician today, and Sierra Sanders is our studio director, keeping an eye on your commute, and Darren Morash is our YouTube producer. Let's also say good morning now to Meekin Ketchison, who's in now with a look at news headlines. Hello.
Hello. Well, 3 men have been convicted in a drug trafficking case. This after an investigation that Winnipeg police once feared had been compromised by one of their own. It's a case involving now disgraced police officer Elston Bostock. And the Elmwood Community Resource Centre is embarking on an ambitious project transforming its current space into more than 100 housing units with wraparound services for residents. And we'll have more at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, coming up this first hour here on Information Radio, deal or no deal as Canada and U.S. trade negotiations come down to the wire. We're going to talk to a political reporter with the Toronto Star about the political challenge. Also later in the show, we're going to hear from a dairy farmer here in Manitoba, all about how he feels about the fact that dairy is a big bargaining chip in the U.S. And Canada trade negotiations. Also coming up, Winnipeg's Chinatown will soon be transformed again for the annual night market. This year, it's called the Lucky Duck Festival, and there's some big changes coming to that festival beyond just the name. We're going to get the scoop on what else is new with that upcoming event. Up first here on Information Radio. Stay tuned.
Tomorrow on Q.
Hannah Mankind broke out globally with his 2024 hit Big Dogs, but his story started much earlier at open mics in Kerala. His latest record is called Monsoon Season, and he'll be here to talk about putting Indian hip-hop on the map.
Q. Tomorrow morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Mike Wise. Canadian and American negotiators have just one more day to make a deal. If they don't, new 50% tariffs are set to take effect on a host of Canadian goods. The Prime Minister's office says Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by phone yesterday. Carney says he is ready for any scenario, including retaliation. And as talks enter crunch time, Michelle Allen tells us about one industry bracing for a potentially crushing blow.
Richmond Plywood says they've loaded their last shipment to the U.S. The BC company says it's paused American sales, even though they're its biggest moneymaker. They're bracing for a 50% tariff on some forest products. It starts Wednesday, unless Canada and the U.S. reach a deal. Bhavjit Thandhi is with Richmond Plywood. He says the tariffs would be a tough blow for the BC forestry industry, which was already struggling.
So it's like boxing, right? So we're in round 8, and we're still standing maybe with one knee kind of thing, right?
Thandhi says materials and harvest fees are expensive, and domestic demand for Canadian wood products is low. Plywood is just one on a long list of tariff targets, including veneer, paper, packaging, and particle board. David Elstone is an advisor to the BC forestry industry.
It's $1 billion worth of Canadian forest products from British Columbia that are at risk here.
The U.S. already charges over 45% in cumulative tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber. Products like plywood and veneer were some of the few things that escaped these punishing tariff rates. Elstone says most of the tariff products would be hard to market elsewhere. Prime Minister Mark Carney still has a day left before the tariffs are due to take effect Wednesday. A few final hours to reach a mutually agreeable deal with U.S. President Donald Trump. The Prime Minister wouldn't say much about the negotiations, only that they're delicate and intense. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Vancouver.
Newfoundland and Labrador's provincial government is hailing a hydro deal inked with Quebec as a major windfall. Not only will Newfoundlanders benefit from upgrades to the electrical grid, it'll also mean more cash flow and opportunities to develop local industries. But not everyone is celebrating. As Cameron Kilfoy tells us, critics are asking why the province went back on promises to put the project to a referendum.
Minute one of the election that night, he promised a referendum to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And the purpose of that was to let Newfoundlanders and Labradorians know that they would have a say in any deal going forward.
That's John Hogan, Newfoundland and Labrador's Liberal leader, speaking about Premier Tony Wakeham's decision to no longer hold a referendum on a new Churchill Falls deal.
And now here he is, after saying he didn't believe in deadlines, and now he does believe in deadlines, and he believed in referendums, and now he doesn't believe in referendums. It makes it difficult to trust what he says in the future.
He says he's pleased to see the long-awaited deal on Churchill Falls, but feels it was rushed due to a looming election in Quebec.
We certainly hope we didn't give anything away. We'll look forward to reading the details and look to see that we didn't give anything away just because Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is up against the tight timeline in Quebec.
The new 50-year power deal will see upgrades to the existing Churchill Falls plant, increasing its capacity, the two provinces developing Gull Island, and building of a new transmission line. The Innu Nation is also ensuring their voices will be heard. Jody Ashini, Grand Chief, says her focus is seeing Indigenous rights at the forefront of any deal.
We can work together with the province and the federal government in Quebec to ensure that this is a deal that's going to be prosperous for the Innu and for future generations.
Both Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec's government hope to finalize a deal by the end of the year. Cameron Kilfoy, CBC News, St. John's.
There's been another deadly school shooting in the Philippines. This local councillor in the southern city of Zamboanga describes what happened.
We saw one student dead on the 4th floor and then another on the 5th floor. Upon confirmation and verification from the Philippine National Police, the first victim was found on the 4th floor. The shooter then went up to the 5th floor, where he took his own life.
Officials say one student was shot and killed after another student opened fire inside a high school campus. Police say the shooter live-streamed the attack before taking his own life. The alleged shooter had been identified as a grade 9 student at the school. At least 2 other people were injured. This is the second school shooting in the Philippines this summer. And there is developing news out of Zambia.
I therefore declare Hichilema Hakainde S. to be president-elect.
The chair of the Electoral Commission officially announcing that Zambia's president has won a second term in office. Hakainde Hichilema secured more than 60% of the 5 million votes cast in last week's election. The election was seen as a referendum on Hichilema's financial reforms. Security threats during the election led to the suspension of the vote count on Friday. There have been several reports of voter intimidation and stolen ballots. CBC News has learned that a lead instructor at a children's hockey camp this summer previously pleaded guilty to assaulting children. The Ontario police officer worked with kids for much of the summer despite his conviction. As the CBC's Christian Davino reports, Ontario law does not require summer camps to conduct mandatory background checks on staff.
Bradley Gibbs is a Durham Regional Police officer. He also worked at KL Hockey Camp in Lindsay, Ontario, despite pleading guilty earlier this year to assaulting two kids known to him. The charges span about a decade and are unrelated to his work at the camp or as an officer. But one victim, who is now an adult, called for the camp to remove Gibbs. We've altered their voice due to a court-ordered publication ban.
If I sent my kid to one of those camps, I would be really concerned.
The camp said Gibbs would be stepping down in an email to parents after CBC News reached out. The camp wouldn't comment further as the case is before the courts. But Puneet Tiwari, a Toronto employment lawyer, warns it still highlights a major issue for the province.
There's really nothing that can be done other than parents demanding a refund or pulling their kids.
In Ontario, vulnerable sectors checks, which include criminal background checks, aren't mandatory for all camp workers, though many organizations require them voluntarily.
This is a big gap in the legislation.
The Ontario Camps Association mandates its 400 camps to do those checks, but one of the OCA's board directors, Rankin Middlebrook, says its standards stop there.
We don't have anything that says if you have a employ a staff member with a criminal record, you must do X, Y, and Z.
The association is voluntary to join, and KL Hockey is not a member. While the Ministry of Education does license camps for kids 4 and under, it says anything else is out of its jurisdiction. Ontario Solicitor General also did not respond to questions about potential legislation. Meanwhile, Gibbs remains in an administrative role with Durham Police. He is scheduled to be sentenced for the assaults next month. Christian Davino, CBC News, Lindsay, Ontario.
A federal court in California will hear opening arguments today in a major case against social media giant Meta. Attorneys general for California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey are suing. They allege the company purposely designed its apps to be addictive for children and illegally harvested their data. Over 24 other states are also preparing similar lawsuits. Meta says it is proud of its protections for underage users and looks forward to making that case in court. The company could face damages totaling more than $1 trillion. And tonight, nearly 20,000 spectators will pack into Toronto's Scotiabank Arena. They'll be there to watch basketball star Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. The team will take on Canada's only WNBA team, the Toronto Tempo. And as Jennifer Yoon reports, the excitement underscores a pivotal moment for women's basketball.
It's going to be a full house. Some Torontonians might be cheering against their WNBA team tonight at a home game, but Tempo coach Sandy Brondello's still excited. For the first time on Canadian soil, basketball superstar Caitlin Clark will be taking to the court.
Caitlin's going to get a lot of cheers. I love it, even as a Tempo coach here.
Clark, who plays for the Indiana Fever, has been pivotal in making women's basketball more popular. Her games draw huge viewership and drive massive ticket sales. With more eyes on the court tonight, the pressure is on for the Tempo, says Brondello.
We're in front of our home fans, but now we've got all eyes on us being a national televised game.
But it could be a tough match for the Toronto Tempo. The team has just finished a 10-match loss streak. The last time the Tempo took on the Fever in June, Indiana beat Toronto 113-91.
We'll try to slow her down as much as we can.
Toronto Tempo guard Marina Mabry bracing for a hard fight against Clark and her teammates, even as she speaks glowingly of her opponent.
She's a great scorer, a great passer, great playmaker.
As WNBA stars like Clark and the franchise reach record popularity, they're also getting pulled into intense, broader conversations, including on gender and identity. Tempo coach Brondello hoping fans can stay focused on the game.
We've got the best players in the world here, and that's what the focus should be on.
The game tips off at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. It's a lovely day out there. 13 degrees right now in Winnipeg, but it's warming up to a sunny lovely 24. And that's pretty much the forecast for the next 5 days or so. Just beautiful August has been so far. Coming up this hour on the show, Deal or No Deal, as Canada-U.S. trade negotiations come down to the wire. We're going to talk to Ryan Tumulty, a political reporter with the Toronto Star, about the political challenge of landing a deal, which I think a lot of people are hoping will be reached in less than 24 hours when that tariff deadline comes into effect at midnight tonight. Also coming up this hour, we're going to take you to a Canadian farm that offers bee bed therapy, which apparently is supposed to be relaxing. But first up on the show, Winnipeg's Chinatown will soon be transformed again for the annual night market. And this year, it's called the Lucky Duck Festival, but there's lots of other things that are changing about it as well. So we've got its organizers in studio, nice and bright and early this morning, to talk all about that. But first, though, 6:11, let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, North Dakota police are disappointed someone took advantage of their resources to find an abducted person who wasn't abducted after all. According to police, a Winnipeg man reported that he was kidnapped and brought across the U.S.-Manitoba border on Saturday, but that wasn't the case. And we'll get details on a storm earlier this summer that uprooted trees and damaged cottages in Caddy Lake. Some people believed it was a tornado, but it's been determined what it was. We'll have details coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Well, as mentioned, in terms of your weather, just what a pleasant forecast ahead here for Winnipeg and actually much of southern Manitoba today, but for the next 4 or 5 days or so. 13 right now, heading for a high of 24 today. It is going to dip down to a chilly 9 degrees overnight, but then warm up to 25, and 25 is the forecast high for the next 5 days here in Winnipeg, and sunny. So just lovely, lovely weather ahead. And it's actually a very similar forecast for much of southern Manitoba, and actually northern Manitoba as well is going to be more like 20 degrees around Thompson for the next 5 days. Though the high today in Thompson, it's 9 right now in Thompson, high of 16 today. We'll get more of an in-depth regional forecast coming up later this hour. But right now, though, let's check in with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Not too much to tell you about on the commute here as we kick off this Tuesday edition of Information Radio. But I will say I definitely chose the wrong outfit for this morning.
I know. I wore shorts and my knees were cold.
I wore like linen pants, like kind of calf length linen pants, and I think I made a mistake.
Yeah, it's almost like we live in Manitoba where it can get actually pretty cold even in August.
Yeah, exactly. But then heats right up in the afternoon. So maybe in the afternoon I would have been fine, but this morning I was definitely questioning my outfit choice.
It's sweater and shorts weather because I don't really know what to wear anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. It's that time of year where you don't really know what to wear, but that's okay. But either way, so far your commute out there is looking pretty good. But if that does change throughout the morning, I would love to hear from you no matter how you are getting around and no matter where you are, whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province. Give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
Well, as mentioned, the annual night market that takes over Winnipeg's Chinatown is back this year, this time with a different name. The Lucky Duck Festival is a multicultural market that will have tons of events and local vendors and is being put on by the Winnipeg Chinese Cultural and Community Center. And this year, it'll run on September 12th and 13th. And Paul Ong is a member of the Lucky Duck Festival organizing committee. And Ray Wan is the president of the Winnipeg Chinese Cultural and Community Center. And they both join us bright and early here in studio. Good morning to you both.
Good morning. Good morning, Corey.
So, Ray, I do want to start with you. So what prompted you to change the name of the event from the Winnipeg Chinatown Night Market to the Lucky Duck Festival?
Well, first of all, it used to be called a Lantern Festival, and then way back on Night Market, and then originally started called Street Market way back a few years ago, and prior to the COVID period that we have. And currently, we want to thematically create a theme for the activities instead of generically call it a festival. First of all, Lantern Festival is very Chinese culture and always happen in late September, based on the lunar calendar. So using the name Lantern is maybe not appropriate for us, and we questioned that the last couple of years. And we tried that last year, partner up with other third-party organizations and co-share the events. But my mandate as the new president of the Cultural Center, I want to bring up the next generation and the next, not just limited to our generation. So the planning committee this year, the last 8 months, involved 3 generations.
Oh, great.
Instead of just a leadership group and say, go out and direct traffic and say, let's do this. Is taking a different direction. So I think thematically to create, give an event a theme, something to focus on, to allow the community to plan around the theme, is very important.
So how do you land on Lucky Duck as the theme, and what does that all involve?
It's by coincidence. One day we were on the internet and website and start searching for character to help us decide which theme should we have, and we come across this 14 feet high yellow rubber duck air structure. As funny as it sounds so random, but that duck has a line dance, line dance head as an additional feature to it. And we fall in love with it and say, hey, let's spin off from that little duck, the 14 feet tall duck, and create some photo op situation, changing the street festival instead of just people and vendors. We're thematically creating something for people to talk about, people to take picture with, and go home and say, hey, see this big structure you have,
So there's going to be a giant duck?
There will be.
Okay, that's very exciting. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
A giant duck with a lion head.
Yes.
A giant
you
duck
know lion
with
dance heads?
Yeah, yes. Okay, so and this and we're bringing 14 feet. So that does sound like quite a photogenic duck. But there's also some more duck kind of things going on. I think there's duck races as well.
Yes.
Not real ducks, rubber duck.
Rubber ducks. Winnipeg Chinatown, Winnipeg Chinese community, the WCCCC, is a nonprofit organization, and this whole event is built around nonprofit. I'll stress that term. We are not making any profit on this. Trust me. There's a few significant sponsors helping us out to facilitate this particular event. We want to give an event, an activity to allow other public to support us. You can buy, we have not determined the price, $3, $5 to buy a duck, and then we'll raise around the Chinese garden pond. Symbolically, and see who can reach the fastest and get to the end line.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Paul, what other events are going on at the festival?
Well, I know that for myself, when I'm involved, there's some performances that will be there, and we are so fortunate and excited because there are other cultural communities, ethnic cultural communities, that will be taking part. We have performances from the Korean community, the Japanese community, the Vietnamese community. And ultimately, when you look at that, it fills your heart because at the roots of having this community event is to bringing people together and being able to share the heritage, and within that, having the opportunities for youth members to get in touch with their cultural roots and identity. So that really fills us because it's not just a Winnipeg Chinese event. It is an event for everybody. So there will be the performances. But one thing that really excites me, and I would have wanted to join this years ago, is the dumpling eating contest.
Okay, that sounds amazing. How does that work?
Well, we talk about competition. We talk about teamwork. We also want the visitors to act as a teamwork and compete among themselves and see who can do better. This year is not how much you can eat; it's how fast you can eat.
Okay, so how many dumplings? So how many dumplings do you have to eat in a certain amount of time?
We're going to give you approximately 20 dumplings each, and see who can finish 20 dumplings.
Wow.
And we are tossing around another competition is how spicy can you take?
Oh.
And perhaps the temperature, how hot.
Okay.
How hot you can take.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds like a challenge. I mean, I could probably, I can eat pierogies pretty quickly, but dumplings, I don't know. We'll have to see, especially spicy ones.
Dumplings are easier because they don't have the potatoes in it.
Right. They just slide right down too. Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, this sounds like lots of fun. How many people are you hoping to bring to the festival this year?
Well, historically, it shows about 3,000 on average. We still like to see a range of 3,000 to 5,000 people to show up, and the number of vendors is way surpassed our expectation. When we were first planning, we thought maybe 20, 25, because we're trying to organize it by ourselves this year. We don't really have a lot of commercial connections as a nonprofit organization. But right now, it turned out we have about 42.
Wow.
And there will be 5 of them are community-based, including the Winnipeg Library.
Oh, great. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
And I think we touched on this just before we got on air, Corey, that really Winnipeg, one really good thing that makes us proud to be Winnipeggers is when we do something for community and for nonprofit, the community shows up. And this is, I think, a true evidence of that, having so many vendors and people involved and participating to support a nonprofit community cause that brings everybody together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
There are 2 highlights that I like to bring up. Is on Saturday we will have about 20 booths indoor in our gymnasium, card exchange. So it will be indoor and outdoor, total over 60 vendors on Saturday.
Oh, wow.
And then on Sunday, shortly after lunch hour, 1:30 to 2 o'clock, we will start a citizenship ceremony. We're expecting 30 to 50 candidates to come through, plus their family to come and watch the ceremony. So we're bringing back some of the traditional events back to the so-called night market.
There's so much going on. I wish we could talk more about it. I'm sure we'll hear more as the event comes up in mid-September. But thank you both for coming in this morning and telling us all about it. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Corey.
Raymond Wan is the president of the Winnipeg Chinese Cultural and Community Center, and Paul Ong is a member of the Lucky Duck Festival Organizing Committee. That festival taking place in mid-September.
Feel that? That's the thrill of the Northern Super League. And it's back on CBC Gem, with 6 fierce clubs battling all season long for glory. From coast to coast, Canada's first professional women's soccer league is bringing the heat. For the fans who live for the roar of the crowd, the last-minute winner, and the moments that make sports unforgettable, this is your season. Watch the Northern Super League all season on CBC Gem.
Time now is 6:22 here. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Well, next up here on the show, the new season of the soccer comedy Ted Lasso is raising questions about why so few women's sports teams have female coaches. Well, in episode 2, the assistant coach of the fictional UK soccer team, the Lady Greyhounds, confronts the owner about her choice for the top job.
Did you ever consider me for head coach? No. Did you consider any woman? No.
Well, that scenario there, not totally fictional. The real world isn't much better. As the last FIFA Women's World Cup, only 12 out of 32 teams had women head coaches. And in the PWHL, just 5 of 12 head coaches are women. And joining us with her thoughts on this is Shireen Ahmed. She is a senior contributor with CBC Sports. Good morning.
Good morning.
So just how lopsided is the playing field when it comes to women versus men holding coaching jobs in women's sports?
So let's just start there. So in professional clubs around the world, we know that less than 5% of those head coaching roles are of women. And those numbers do seem a little bleak, but even closer to home, or at home rather, it's really important to know, like since 2016, women have made up like less than 1/5 of Olympic coaches in the Summer Olympics, and for the Winter Games, it's like 1/10. So those numbers are not particularly encouraging. So that's just something I wanted to point out. And for example, but before we start panicking, the Northern Super League, out of the 6 teams, 3 of those teams are women as head coaches, which I think is really important. We have to start somewhere. So do we have a lot of work to do in Canada? Absolutely, yes.
And can you just give an example of just how much work there is to do in Canada in terms of the gender imbalance in Canadian sport?
Well, yeah, we have the data that tells us there's just simply not enough. So the next step is, what exactly do we do about it? And I think we're in the stage of what are we practically implementing to be able to facilitate pathways for women and young girls to even see and consider jobs in the front office, whether they're officiating, refereeing, or as head coaches and general managers. And that's actually really important. Like, for example, Toronto Tempo Canada's expansion team, the WNBA, the coach and the general manager, Sandy Brondello and Monica Wright-Rogers, respectively, are both former players. They're the only team in the entire league that have the coach and general manager as former players, and that's really important. But that's the other thing. How do we access those pathways? They may be easier for retired players to know. But what about if you're just somebody who really loves sport and has a very high game IQ? How do you get into it? So those are the things that haven't clearly been laid out for young women.
And are those the biggest barriers, that there's not really kind of this pipeline from smaller positions on the team to the top job? Or what are some of the big barriers women face when they try to move into these jobs?
Yeah, pipeline is definitely one of them. The other thing, which is so obvious, but I think gets unsaid, is the amount of labor generally expected of women in society, like, outside and inside the home. Well, the data also tells us that women do an exorbitant amount of work at home, be it mental, physical, psychosocial. So what does that look like? These high intense jobs, and you'll see that very often men are in the roles. They usually have a partner at home taking care of everything. But in the case of many women, it's women taking care of that stuff. So has society actually set up women for success? And are we doing that in our own homes? Are we ensuring that there's more of an equitable layout of work that's expected and done by women traditionally?
In the cases where there are women in these leadership and coaching roles, what difference does that make for the team?
I think it's very impactful on a personal level as a player. Like, for example, my daughter is now in her 20s and still plays soccer competitively, and I was her first coach when she was 4 in a Timbits league, and I was the only mom in the entire league in that division who I would strap my youngest son on my back and I would coach her because it was really important to me. And between the two parents, I was a soccer expert, but I was the only one. But what that does, it gives a normalcy. It adds a normalcy and an optic of young girls and young boys going, oh, she can do it. I want to do that too. We start out, we don't even realize that we set expectations, even in a place like Canada in 2026, where young kids were being introduced to sport and their families, they see a particular thing and they see it for a long time. Girls in this country still go decades without having a woman as a head coach in many sports. So that is absolutely something that we need to work on. And the effect that it has is not only the mental health, but there's some certain lived experiences that a woman may be able to really sort of relate to their players on, and that goes unsaid.
Is there any examples of places that are doing better than Canada overall when it comes to, having women in top coaching jobs?
Yeah, well, I do want to also say that Canada's not the worst in the world, but we can definitely do better. And the fact that these conversations are happening, I know Canada Soccer has a program to encourage coaching, which came in with Casey Stoney, the head coach of the national women's team. But one place that I think we should all be paying attention to is Scandinavia. The way that Northern European countries look at sport is absolutely different. They don't look at it as sort of this competitive from the get-go. It's more about what sport does for society and for the individual and their development. And that's something in some way that we really need to look at sport, particularly after we know there can be so much toxicity. So, we can look to that. And also, making changes at a provincial level, like with PSOs and NSOs, provincial and national sporting organizations, they have to be accountable. Do they have pathways? Do they have programs? Do they have introductory programs for officiating, for coaching, for all these things? People really need to step up at every level in Canada.
Well, Shireen, thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Shireen Ahmed is a senior contributor with CBC Sports. Well, just a minute now ahead of the news. Right now in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 13 degrees, warming up to 24 today, and then dipping down to 9 overnight. But a lovely day, lovely forecast ahead for the next 5 days or so. Going to be mid-20s pretty much right up until Monday. Just a really lovely week ahead weather-wise. Still to come here on the show when it comes to bees. Some people like to keep their distance, but CBC's Amy Dodge, a reporter, recently had an experience that brought her face-to-face with thousands of them. She's going to take us to a Canadian farm that offers bee bed therapy. Also, we're going to get the latest on the U.S.-Canada trade negotiations with that tariff deadline looming for midnight tonight. How are things going and what can we expect in the next 24 hours or so? That's all coming up after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 6:30. It is mainly clear and 13, sunny and windy today, a high of 24. North Dakota police are disappointed someone took advantage of their resources to find an abducted person who was not abducted after all. According to police, a Winnipeg man had reported that he was kidnapped and brought across the U.S.-Manitoba border on Saturday. Authorities found the man in Alexandria, Minnesota. They say the alleged victim later admitted to have falsely reported the abduction. Lieutenant Jenna Clausen-Hubrights is with the North Dakota Highway Patrol. She says highway cameras, license plate readers, and officers from several organizations were used to locate the man.
It is really unfortunate because that's a lot of resources, and all those resources are diverted from other things. All those law enforcement agencies and partners were working on different investigations and different things that they stopped doing to work on this specific case since it rose to the top.
The 37-year-old man is facing charges in Minnesota for falsely reporting a crime. 3 men have been convicted in a drug trafficking case after an investigation that Winnipeg police once feared had been compromised by one of their own. CBC's Caitlin Garlick has more.
A high-level cocaine trafficker, a nightclub owner working as a drug courier, and a recently divorced father who agreed to stash crack cocaine in his home. All charged in a Winnipeg police investigation called Project Roasted that officers once feared had been compromised. Former Constable Elston Bostock is now in prison for corruption. But before that, police searched a drug dealer's phone for proof Bostock was communicating with them. Officers found photos of Bostock with criminals and texts where they talked about Bostock giving them information. 2 of the men involved in the drug operation have been sentenced, while the one who prosecutors say sparked the investigation is expected back in court for sentencing next year. Caitlin Gowerluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
In international news, Canadians aren't the only ones waiting to hear what might happen before Wednesday's deadline. American business owners who source Canadian products are bracing themselves for another hit, one that could represent the tipping point after months on the edge. Rihanna Schnunk reports.
At this point, Julia Hallman's Canadian suppliers are friends. She drove to Quebec from Massachusetts last summer to visit the brothers who make one of her best-selling cheeses and wants to keep their products on her shelves at her specialty food store, Formaggio Kitchen.
At the end of the day, we want to help support them.
Hallman is waiting to hear whether the Trump administration imposes new 50% levies against hundreds of Canadian goods tomorrow. As the American importer, she's the one who gets the bill. She's managed so far by cutting profits, raising prices, or both. But she says a rate of 50% would eventually be too much to handle.
We also have a threshold of what we can handle as a business and what our customers are willing to pay.
The new levies would affect a long list of Canadian goods with an estimated value of more than $20 billion. Plus, Hallman says they affect the intangible relationships between importer and exporter. Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Washington.
This tornado season in Manitoba has been more active than normal. The Northern Tornadoes Project has investigated a number of storms in this province this summer. Dave Sills is the project director.
In Manitoba, we're up to 10 tornadoes, and the 30-year average for Manitoba is 8.5. So middle of August, and it's already higher than average. So in Manitoba, it's been more active than typical. And across the prairies, certainly it's been more active than normal.
The Tornadoes Project also confirmed 5 downbursts in Manitoba this season. One of those downbursts, known as a microburst, uprooted trees at Caddy Lake and Whiteshell on July 6th. A tornado was confirmed that same afternoon at Deception Lake in northwestern Ontario. The Elmwood Community Resource Centre is embarking on an ambitious project, transforming its current space into more than 100 housing units with wraparound services for residents. Executive Director Nina Kondo says their existing spaces are over capacity. So rather than grow outward, it will build upward with housing upstairs from an expanded community centre. Kondo says some of the agencies in Winnipeg already offer housing and services under one roof, but she says this will have more.
The
difference for us is that we're adding the culture component, we're adding some recreational lens, but also it's the medical lens, the health and wellness piece, where we will have a medical team in the building supporting us.
The project is currently in the planning stages. You can hear more about the Elmwood Hub after the 7 o'clock news on Information Radio. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Well, let's take a quick look at your forecast. And as mentioned, it is a very lovely forecast indeed. 13 right now in Winnipeg, looking for a high of 24 today and sunny. Going down to 9 overnight, then tomorrow 25. And if you want to memorize the next 5 days of weather, it's going to be the easiest thing you've ever done, because the forecast high for the next 5 days in a row from Wednesday to Sunday is 25 and sunny. And then the lows in kind of the low teens or so. So it's still getting a little cooler at night, but just a lovely, clear forecast ahead for much of southern Manitoba. Brandon, right now, you're sitting at 8, heading for a high of 23. You do have a bit of a chance of showers tomorrow, but other than that, very warm, sunny forecast for the next 4 or 5 days or so as well. Out in Steinbach right now, you're sitting at 8, heading for a high of 24. You're dipping down to 8 overnight. And then similar, sunny, 24, 25, 26 or so for the next 4 or 5 days. And then Thompson, you're sitting at 9 right now, warming up to 16, and then dipping down to 5 overnight, and then tomorrow a high of 20. And then according to the longer-term forecast, you do have a bit of a chance of showers in Thompson coming your way on Thursday. Let's check in now with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. There's not much to look at or talk about. It's been a very slow morning on the commute so far. Kind of like yesterday as well, but sometimes when you talk about it, you kind of eat your words a little bit, and then next thing you know, the phones are just ringing off the hook. So I haven't heard about any major backups or situations right now out there on the roads, but I would love to hear from you if that's changing for you while you're out there on your commute, no matter how you're getting around. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, your studio director. Well, up next here on the show, Neil Herland is here with the Business Report. Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
So tariff negotiations are still underway between Canada and the U.S., but what happens tonight if they fail?
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney says the Canadian government has plans for any scenario, and that includes those harsh 50% tariffs that might take effect in 16 and a half hours from now. Late last night, the Prime Minister's office in Ottawa confirmed that Carney spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump by phone yesterday. But make no mistake, if the U.S. imposes a 50% tariff on Canadian imports, it would cause massive economic disruption on both sides of the border. That's because of the deeply integrated nature of our supply chains, especially in the automotive and manufacturing sectors, because goods frequently cross the border during production. Canadian exporters would face drastically higher costs, leading to decreased sales to the U.S. And that could trigger job losses and an economic recession here in Canada. Conversely, U.S. consumers and businesses would face much higher prices for imported Canadian goods. That would likely boost inflation in the United States because the higher cost of imported goods and raw materials would likely be passed on to consumers. Plants and manufacturing hubs like Ontario and BC would be especially vulnerable, risking significant job losses and potential bankruptcies among part suppliers. I should mention that no other country is facing the threat of 50% tariffs, so that begs the question, is Donald Trump bluffing? We'll find out tonight.
Also, Neil, we've been hearing about self-driving cars in recent years, but now a California company is trying to develop robotic construction machines.
Yeah, this is like science fiction. A few years ago, a friend of mine said he got a self-driving Uber in Los Angeles, and that really surprised him. Now, imagine walking by a construction site and seeing an excavator digging up dirt without a human operator. Well, it's now happening. A San Francisco company called Bedrock Robotics just announced that it's operating excavators that are fully autonomous at 3 commercial sites in Texas and Nevada. And I was on the Bedrock website this morning. The video of this technology is quite impressive. The company says it's trying to develop larger fleets that can execute jobs on a construction site at a pace and scale the industry has never seen. It doesn't matter if there's a shortage of construction workers or heavy machine operators, because this technology would reduce the need for human workers. Bedrock says 20% of construction workers are now over the age of 55. One estimate says 40% of the construction industry will retire in the next 5 years.
Also, the president and co-founder of OpenAI is warning the public about the potential dangers of AI. So what's he saying?
So Greg Brockman just published a personal blog post telling companies they need to take action now to make sure that their computer systems are secure from AI hacking. His company, OpenAI, makes ChatGPT, and he cites the recent hack by OpenAI of the open source platform called Hugging Face. Brockman calls it a watershed moment for cybersecurity. And so he lists a 10-point plan for companies to protect themselves. He says businesses need to fundamentally increase their cybersecurity practices with unprecedented speed. Brockman adds the recent Hugging Face incident showed that we underestimated the real-world cyber capabilities of our AI models. And he recommends that companies should use AI itself to run test hacks on their own vulnerabilities.
Well, Neil, thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's Neil Herland with the Business News. Well, 6:41 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. Well, up next here, what if someone told you the key to relaxing is to lie on a wooden bed above thousands of honeybees? Would you try it? It's called bee bed therapy, and it's gaining popularity around the world. So what exactly is it, and why is it creating such a buzz? Curiosity led CBC's Amy Dodge to meet Diana Graham. She runs Bees in Bloom Wellness in Lakeshore, Ontario, near Windsor.
There's 8 hives, and they're underneath the beds. There's 2 screens to protect you, so no bees will get at you.
I thought I'd be a bit anxious, but it's kind of a nice sound. Do you like it?
Very relaxing. Yes.
Take me back to how this all came to be.
I got my grandparents' farm here. I have 69 acres, so I wanted to do bees. So the first thing I bought was an extractor from a girl in Chatham, and she started talking about bee bed therapy.
You want to lay with me?
Sure.
Okay. I've never had such an intimate relationship with a bee as I am right now. It's because they're right under you. You can hear them in your ear, just humming.
And they're all female. The only male is the drone.
I feel like I should name them.
It's perfectly safe. I have a jacket with a veil that covers you. So when you're walking down here, you're protected from the bees. And then when you're in here, you're fully protected because there's 2 screens dividing you from the bees and the beehive.
So what's been the response so far from people who have been in here?
Very relaxing. My full name's Christine Brady. I live in Petrolia. I just went there to kind of zone out and relax. You go for the vibration and the smell. You're not there to take pictures and be on your phone. The idea, I think, is to kind of relax and let the vibrations kind of surround you and just let what happens happen. The only place I could find before she opened up was in Italy.
Okay, my name is Annette Barassa in Barrie, Ontario. It was just a few weeks ago. Bee bed therapy, like the concept of lying on a bed above a bunch of bees, right? Until you try it, you really don't know what to expect.
You took this farm over from your grandparents. If they were here today, what do you think they would think of this?
My grandfather would probably laugh. Because of his age, yeah. We're in an age where people are starting to look holistic instead of the medical. There's no electricity to it. It's all the bees.
That story was put together by CBC's Amy Dodge. She also spoke with bee bed therapy operators from around the world. And you can find the full story online. You just search the internet for Bee Bed Therapy CBC. Now, we actually, just out of curiosity, looked how much one of those sessions costs online. Sierra Sanders was looking into it. So it was $85 for 60 minutes and $150 for 2 hours. I don't know if you would want to, if you'd find that I don't know, necessarily worth it or not. It'd be interesting to see if you've done bed therapy, or maybe you offer bed therapy in Manitoba. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. 204-788-3205. Well, next up here on the show, Canadian pop star Carly Rae Jepsen will be releasing a new album a month from today. It's called Day and Night and will feature 24 songs split across 2 discs. She's already shared 3 of the new songs. Here's one of them. This is Carly Rae Jepsen with After All. That's Carly Rae Jepsen with After All. Her new album, Day and Night, comes out on September 18th, a month from today. Well, let's talk about something that's happening less than a day away. It's nearly deadline day, and in less than 24 hours, Canadians should know if the federal government has reached a trade deal with the United States, or if we'll be hit by a new round of punishing 50% tariffs. Now, after months of negotiations between trade officials, the decision now comes down to final talks between Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump. And for more, we've reached Ryan Tumulty. He is a political reporter with the Toronto Star. Good morning.
Good morning.
So it seems the deal has now been turned over to the two leaders. So how do you read the situation?
I think it was always going to be turned over to the two leaders at a certain point. They're the ones who have to live with the consequences of any deal. Certainly, the prime minister is going to have to live with the consequences of any concession that he makes. But the Trump administration, Donald Trump has pledged, to go tough on these things. So if he backs down on any of the demands that he's made, he has to live with that politically. So it was always going to end up with this. I think we'll see if the two leaders can knit something together today. But it definitely falls on their shoulders.
And what are you hearing inside Ottawa about where things stand right now?
Yeah, not a lot is the short answer to that question. The longer answer to the question, though, is that from what we are hearing, I think the Canadian government is trying to downplay expectations that there will be a deal. I think the message you are hearing from the Canadian government is that getting to a deal is going to be difficult, that it's almost unlikely. And I think they are trying to prepare the ground for Canadians that that's going to happen and that these tariffs are going to come into force. In what's starting to seem like the unlikely event that they reach a deal, then the Canadian government can say that we, got a deal against all odds kind of thing. But if they don't get a deal, I think they want Canadians to be prepared for it, which is why the sort of message has been kind of downbeat over the past few days.
So then what could the government response look like? And how's it weighing its options around, retaliation, relief, if it does come down to these tariffs coming into place?
Yeah, what we've seen from the Trump administration is that they tend to respond to retaliation with more retaliation. So I think the Canadian government has to really weigh its options here. If we come down with tariffs of our own, I think it wouldn't be surprising if the U.S. administration ups their tariffs even further. So I think that's a level of frustration that certainly the Canadian government has. And they're going to have to weigh, how much relief they can offer, the impact that's going to have on the ongoing trade negotiations, how difficult it might make it to finally reach a final deal. These individual tariffs, obviously they add up and they hurt jobs and they hurt sectors. But I think it's the uncertainty that's really hurting Canada right now when it comes to, attracting new businesses, getting people to open factories here and things like that. Until this deal is settled overall, it's going to be a real challenge.
And to get to a deal, we all know that both sides are going to have to make at least some concessions. But, how is the government going to weigh options or how, might the most politically explosive elements of a deal be if it's not as favorable for Canada as some might have hoped?
Yeah, I think if you look at the news today, I'm sure CBC is writing a story as well. 200,000 plus people have signed a petition calling on Canada to expel the U.S. ambassador. That's the kind of mood Canadians are in right now. We don't expel ambassadors under most circumstances, really ever. We haven't expelled the Russian ambassador or the Chinese ambassador who was keeping two of our citizens hostage for a number of years. So, that is the kind of mood Canadians are in right now. So any concession is going to be a political problem for the Carney government. Certain concessions are going to be bigger ones. Because those industries have the ability to make their voices heard. I'm thinking of the dairy industry, certainly the automotive industry. If there are big concessions that lead to more job losses or plant closures, I think that's going to be a big problem. But any concession right now, I think, is going to be a political problem for the government.
And if there's no deal, how politically demoralizing might that be?
Yeah, I think one of the challenges of no deal is that the structure of these new tariffs is that they're hitting industries that employ a lot of small businesses. So previously we've seen tariffs on steel and aluminum and autos. Those are by definition big businesses. There's not such thing as a mom and pop steel mill. But these new tariffs are going to hit businesses that employ less than 20 people in a lot of cases. And businesses that size don't have a lot of room to maneuver. If they get hit with 50% tariffs on a significant chunk of their business, they might close. There might be job losses, and they'll be scattered all over the country. And I think that is going to be a challenge for the government because those MPs are going to hear about it, and they're going to ask, they're going to be asked why a deal wasn't reached some time ago, because that's what the Prime Minister promised he would do.
What do you expect to hear from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre as this unfolds?
Yeah, I think you're going to hear from him that why wasn't a deal reached? He has said that time and time again. He's pointed out that the Prime Minister promised a deal would come. He has said that sort of at every milestone that the government has missed when it comes to reaching a deal. He has suggested that a tariff-free deal, an easy deal, is out there and available. So I think any concessions that the Liberals make, Mr. Poilievre is going to highlight them. I don't know that a tariff-free deal was ever really on the table with the Trump administration, but certainly that has been the line that Mr. Poilievre has drawn in the sand, and I think he's going to, hold the government's feet to the fire on this.
Let's switch gears now to a different deal, an interprovincial one that's kept Carney pretty busy as well. What can you tell us about the Churchill Falls deal announced yesterday and its significance?
Yeah, this is a massive deal. This is the largest renewable energy project in North America. It's how the government is describing it, and they're right. It is the refurbishment of a major hydroelectric dam, so it generates more power. It is the building of a brand new dam for even more power, and then a huge wind farm investment, along with interties, new transmission lines, lots of opportunities for new industrial development, new mines that are being driven by the availability of this power. And maybe most importantly, this puts to end a long-running dispute between Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec. That dispute is, decades old at this point, 40 years old at least. And this is the end of it. The Prime Minister stepped in the middle here. They had reached a deal a few years ago that was ultimately put aside by the provincial election in Newfoundland last year. And now they've got a new one that the federal government has helped broker and is part of the federal government is part of the mix as well. So, it's fairly significant, and it's going to mean a lot of jobs and a lot of new power that Newfoundland and Labrador can sell to Americans.
Well, Ryan, thanks for your time this morning, and I'm sure we'll talk again. It'll be interesting to see when we talk again next week about what's unfolded between now and then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ryan Tumulty is a political reporter with the Toronto Star. And stay tuned. Coming up this next hour on the show, as you heard Ryan say there, Canadian dairy has become a central sticking point in the U.S.-Canada trade negotiations. We're going to hear from a local dairy farmer about what he'd like to see come out of the deal and what a 50% tariff would mean for him. Looking at your commute right now, been pretty quiet overall. We haven't heard of any major issues yet, but if you do see something going on, you can give Sierra Sanders a call. She'll pick up 204-788-3093. Right now, Winnipeg, we're sitting at 13 and warming up to 24. Let's check in now with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, this tornado season in Manitoba has been more active than normal. In Manitoba, we've already seen 10 confirmed tornadoes, and in the 30-year average is just over 8. And coming up, we'll hear more about 3 men who have pled guilty in a drug trafficking case some were concerned may have been undermined by former police officer Elston Bostock.
Thank you very much, Megan. That's Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Also stay tuned this next hour on the show. A local community center says they're bursting at the seams. The solution, build upwards. We're going to hear from the Elmwood Hub Project, an ambitious plan to combine the Elmwood Community Resource Center with 115 units of housing. Stay tuned for that here on Information Radio. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
on Commotion. Sade Adu is the woman. Sade is the band she leads. Both of them change pop music in ways that you see even right now. Later this year, Sade will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The group chat will tell you about the legacy of Sade Adu and her band, Sade.
Commotion, this morning at 11:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Mike Wise. Prime Minister Carney says last-minute trade talks with the United States are delicate and intense. If no deal is made by tomorrow, Washington will slap new 50% tariffs on a range of Canadian goods, from honey to hockey sticks. We know Carney spoke with U.S. President Donald Trump by phone yesterday. We do not know the details of their conversation. Joining us to help fill in the blanks, the CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian is in Ottawa. So, Rafi, where do talks stand right now?
Mike, we just got word from our colleagues at Radio-Canada. New meetings are expected today between Canadian and American negotiators with the goal of reaching a deal before these new tariffs kick in. There could also be a call between Prime Minister Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump, a second one. If there is no agreement, Canada is facing a whole slew of new tariffs, higher than any implemented so far by Trump. Now, this round of talks between Carney's top man in Washington, Canada-U.S. Trade Relations Minister Dominic LeBlanc and his American counterpart Jameson Greer has been longer, more involved. LeBlanc has been in Washington for more than a week now. Any further talks would have to iron out the sticking points. We know the U.S. is unhappy about the ban on sales of American liquor in place in most provinces here. And we know the Canadian side has been trying to get them to substantially reduce or get rid of existing tariffs on those sectors like steel, aluminum, auto, and softwood lumber.
Okay, so we're looking for updates. If the clock strikes 12 and nothing has been signed, what happens next?
Well, presumably those new tariffs could kick in immediately, though, of course, over the course of the last year, we've also seen occasions where this frankly unpredictable president has threatened levies and then not gone through with them. Think of his recent musings over Canadian wildfire smoke blowing into the U.S., for example. Could Canada escalate if Trump holds true to his word? We know that when the Prime Minister met with his provincial and territorial counterparts last month, he asked for ideas for retaliation, and he's also told the media he has plans for any situation that may arise.
Okay, thanks, Rafi.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian in Ottawa. Newfoundland and Labrador's provincial government is hailing a hydro deal inked with Quebec as a major windfall. Not only will Newfoundlanders benefit from upgrades to the electrical grid, it also means more cash flow and opportunities to develop local industries. But not everyone is celebrating. As Cameron Kilfoy tells us, critics are asking why the province went back on promises to put the project to a referendum.
Minute one of the election that night, he promised a referendum to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And the purpose of that was to let Newfoundlanders and Labradorians know that they would have a say in any deal going forward.
That's John Hogan, Newfoundland and Labrador's Liberal leader, speaking about Premier Tony Wakeham's decision to no longer hold a referendum on a new Churchill Falls deal.
And now here he is, after saying he didn't believe in deadlines, and now he does believe in deadlines, and he believed in referendums, and now he doesn't believe in referendums. It makes it difficult to trust what he says in the future.
He says he's pleased to see the long-awaited deal on Churchill Falls, but feels it was rushed due to a looming election in Quebec.
We certainly hope we didn't give anything away. We'll look forward to reading the details and look to see that we didn't give anything away just because Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is up against the tight timeline in Quebec.
The new 50-year power deal will see upgrades to the existing Churchill Falls plant, increasing its capacity, the two provinces developing Gull Island, and building of a new transmission line. The Innu Nation is also ensuring their voices will be heard. Jody Ashini, Grand Chief, says her focus is seeing Indigenous rights at the forefront of any deal.
We can work together with the province and the federal government in Quebec to ensure that this is a deal that's going to be prosperous for the Innu and for future generations.
Both Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec's government hope to finalize a deal by the end of the year. Cameron Kilfoy, CBC News, St. John's.
There has been another deadly school shooting in the Philippines. Ambulances rush to help the injured in the southern city of Zamboanga. Police say one student is dead after another student opened fire inside the campus. Officials say the suspect was live streaming the attack before he took his own life. This is the Philippines' second school shooting in just 2 months. 2 other people were wounded. The alleged shooter has been identified as a grade 9 student and the son of a Bureau of Customs police commander. The Bureau's deputy commissioner says one of the 2 guns used in the attack was a government-issued pistol. He is recommending temporarily suspending the commander, who may face charges for failing to properly safeguard the weapon. CBC News has learned that a lead instructor at a children's hockey camp this summer previously pleaded guilty to assaulting children. The Ontario police officer worked with kids for much of the summer despite his conviction. As the CBC's Christian Davino reports, Ontario law does not require summer camps to conduct mandatory background checks on staff.
Bradley Gibbs is a Durham Regional Police Officer. He also worked at Kale Hockey Camp in Lindsay, Ontario, despite pleading guilty earlier this year to assaulting 2 kids known to him. The charges span about a decade and are unrelated to his work at the camp or as an officer. But one victim, who is now an adult, called for the camp to remove Gibbs. We've altered their voice due to a court-ordered publication ban.
If I sent my kid to one of those camps, I would be really concerned.
The camp said Gibbs would be stepping down in an email to parents after CBC News reached out. The camp wouldn't comment further as the case is before the courts. But Puneet Tiwari, a Toronto employment lawyer, warns it still highlights a major issue for the province.
There's really nothing that can be done other than parents demanding a refund or pulling their kids.
In Ontario, vulnerable sectors checks, which include criminal background checks, aren't mandatory for all camp workers, though many organizations require them voluntarily.
This is a big gap in the legislation.
The Ontario Camps Association mandates its 400 camps to do those checks, but one of the OCA's board directors, Rankin Middlebrook, says its standards stop there.
We don't have anything that says if you have a criminal employ a staff member with a criminal record, you must do X, Y, and Z.
The association is voluntary to join, and KL Hockey is not a member. While the Ministry of Education does license camps for kids 4 and under, it says anything else is out of its jurisdiction. Ontario Solicitor General also did not respond to questions about potential legislation. Meanwhile, Gibbs remains in an administrative role with Durham Police. He is scheduled to be sentenced for the assaults next month. Christian Davino, CBC News, Lindsay, Ontario.
A federal court in California will hear opening arguments today in a major case against social media giant Meta. Attorneys general for California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey are suing. They allege the company purposely designed its apps to be addictive for children and illegally harvested their data. Over 24 other states are also preparing similar lawsuits. Meta says it's proud of its protections for underage users and looks forward to making their case in court. Meta could face damages totaling more than $1 trillion. Well, tonight, nearly 20,000 spectators will pack into Toronto's Scotiabank Arena. They'll be there to watch basketball star Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. The team will take on Canada's only WNBA team, the Toronto Tempo. As Jennifer Yoon reports, the excitement underscores a pivotal moment for women's basketball.
It's going to be a full house.
Some Torontonians might be cheering against their WNBA team tonight at a home game, but Tempo coach Sandy Brondello's still excited. For the first time on Canadian soil, basketball superstar Caitlin Clark will be taking to the court.
Caitlin's going to get a lot of cheers. I love it, even as a Tempo coach here.
Clark, who plays for the Indiana Fever, has been pivotal in making women's basketball more popular. Her games draw huge viewership and drive massive ticket sales. With more eyes on the court tonight, the pressure is on for the Tempo, says Brondello.
We're in front of our home fans, but now we've got all eyes on us, being a national televised game.
But it could be a tough match for the Toronto Tempo. The team has just finished a 10-match loss streak. The last time the Tempo took on the Fever in June, Indiana beat Toronto 113-91.
We'll try to slow her down as much as we can.
Toronto Tempo guard Marina Mabry bracing for a hard fight against Clark and her teammates, even as she speaks glowingly of her opponent.
She's a great scorer, a great passer, great playmaker.
As WNBA stars like Clark and the franchise reach record popularity, they're also getting pulled into intense, broader conversations, including on gender and identity. Tempo coach Brondello hoping fans can stay focused on the game.
We've got the best players in the world here, and that's what the focus should be on.
The game tips off at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. One of the most popular stories on our website this morning, an Evan Dyer column looking at U.S. Ambassador Pete Hoekstra and an online petition calling for his removal. The column argues that his recent missteps may be mild compared to other U.S. ambassadors. You can find that at cbcnews.ca. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Good to be with you. Happy Tuesday. Coming up this hour on the show, with less than 24 hours to go until Trump's 50% tariff deadline, Canada and the U.S. have yet to reach a deal, and dairy is one of the main sticking points. We're going to hear how one Manitoba dairy farmer feels about those negotiations and what he hopes to see. Also coming up this hour after 7:30, we're celebrating the life and legacy of a librarian in Pembina Valley who made it her mission to keep books on the shelves in the face of calls for defunding and censorship. A friend and colleague of Kathy Ching will join us to talk about her legacy. But up first on the show, giving people the support they need without the need to leave home. That's the idea behind the Elmwood Hub project, which is transforming a local community resource center into a community living space focused on healing and wellness. Stay tuned for all of that. But right now, 7:11, let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, good morning. A Winnipeg man faces charges in the U.S. after police say he lied about being abducted. According to the North Dakota Highway Patrol, the 37-year-old told his family on Saturday he had been kidnapped and taken across the border by another man. A North Dakota Highway Patrol lieutenant says several agencies, including the FBI, worked for at least 6 hours to find the man, and it was a false abduction. And the head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers says he's tremendously proud of Canada's flag football teams. The men's and women's squads qualified for the 2028 Olympics over the weekend. Mike O'Shea says he expects getting to the games will help drive up interest in the sport. And we'll have more at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You bet.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Well, let's take a quick look at your weather here in Winnipeg right now. We're sitting at 13, heading for a high today of 24, sunny, dipping down to 9 overnight. It's going to be clear. And then by tomorrow, warming up to 25. And as mentioned earlier, this last hour, pretty much if you want to memorize the next 5 days of forecast, it's going to be very easy because it's 25 is the forecast high for the next 5 days in a row after today, and sunny as well. So very clear, very lovely weather coming our way to much of southern Manitoba. We'll have a more of an in-depth regional forecast ahead for you coming up later this half in the next hour or so. Though right now, let's check in with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Got a call from Jill here about a stalled car on northbound Sherbrooke at Westminster. So there's construction along Sherbrooke there as you're heading north. And so she said that it was in the second lane. So you can go left around. So that's technically the curb lane with that construction going on, because we do know Sherbrooke is kind of like about 4 lanes of traffic there. So stalled car heading northbound on Sherbrooke at Westminster. That stalled car is in the curb lane. So you can go left around, but it might come up on you pretty quickly there as you're coming off the bridge there. So something to keep in mind here as we head into the 7 o'clock hour here. And that might cause some backups because, as I said, there is construction in that area along northbound Sherbrooke. So be like Jill, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I love hearing from you guys who are out there and can let me know what you're seeing. It's great to hear from you. No matter how you're getting around, whether you're walking, biking, driving, no matter where you are in the province, whether you are here in Manitoba or out on those highways, I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on the show, for the past 25 years, the Elmwood Community Resource Center has been a bustling spot on Wall Street. And these days, it's bursting at the seams. The center, currently spread across 5 buildings in northeast Winnipeg, is home to a whole host of programs, from family services to education and employment, food security, and even supports for those fleeing gender-based violence. But our next guest is taking things a step further and transforming it into a home for people. Nina Kondo is executive director of the ECRC and the new Elmwood Hub project, which plans to transform the center's main location into a unique type of housing development. She joins us now to talk about it. Hi there.
Hi.
So, Nina, tell us a little bit, how does a community center come to the decision to get into housing?
We were running out of space, literally. We were joking actually sometimes that we need bunk beds as our desk because we're running out of space. As we're growing as a center, we thought to expand our footprint and bring, if possible, bringing all resources under one roof. Because sometimes when we are serving or supporting folks who wanting to go back to school and learn or build their literacy skills, we'll send them to one location. But then when that person finished that program and they need an employment support, and then they will go to another location, which was not really not the best way. And so we did some community consultation, lots of focus group. We consulted with over 300 community members to find out what are the gaps in service, but also what else are we missing as a center, as a family resource center. So through the organization and community consultation, it was very evident to expand our space, but also in doing that, we'll be able to expand also programming. So as we were looking at partnering with other organizations, we look towards the city of Winnipeg to support us in finding space or land. And luckily, the location that we are in, which is our main location, 545 Watt Street, was declared as part of the Housing Accelerator Fund last year or a year and a half ago. So as a result of that, we've been working closely with the city and all level of government to build 115 units of apartment, mixed housing apartment, where then we can also expand our services. We can expand spaces for culture practices, education. So we'll bring all 5 locations under one roof if possible. That was our dream. And as a result, we're able to start construction. So we've done all the preliminary pre-development stage, and we are hoping to do demolition in the fall, with the plan of starting, hopefully, the full construction early spring.
Okay. Busy times ahead then for you. So all the money for all this, you are a nonprofit. You mentioned it's part of the Accelerator Fund. Does that cover all the costs of this, or where else is the money coming from to fund this?
No, this project is 60 million in total. We're hoping all Manitoban will help us to raise the funds, not just government, all level of government, but also individual investors. And we will be doing a gala on November 14 to raise some of the funding towards the capital project. And within the building, we are hoping to also provide additional services that have been shared that there is a need. For instance, to have a space where family can have visitation with their children in the community center where they've built relationship. It's safer and more sort of culture-centered as well to have their family visitation. We will have a gym for youth to access and also any other resident in the building. And then expanding some of our employment program. We'll have a floor to support those who are surviving gender-based violence. And we'll have a floor for youth who are aging out of care. So hopefully we're hoping to do affordable housing, and then the rest of the other apartment will be market rent to be able to afford the mortgage as well.
And so in terms of the cost breakdown here, how much is the Accelerator Fund covering and how much are you hoping to fundraise to cover all the other costs of the $60 million that it will cost?
Yeah, we're still in the process of creating our budget. So our developer and construction manager are working towards raising enough funds to start at least the construction in early spring, and hopefully the city and the provincial government will come in, and federal government will come in, all level will come in, and as well as private investors to support the fundraising of the project.
And can you just give us a sense, like you've told us about all the things going on in this building. How big is it, just in terms of a sense of what your vision is for, in terms of square footage, in terms of height? How big will it be?
Yeah, it's like a tall, long building, 7-story building. Right now, if those of you who have been at the center, it's just one floor, one main floor. And with this building, we're building up 7th floor. We've been able, with the city, to get the 1.2 acre to build the space.
Okay. And what have you been hearing from people in the community when you talk about what your vision is and the fact that, you seem to be heading towards this actually happening?
Oh, the community are excited, and also looking forward to, hopefully, we're hoping to finish all the construction in 2028. So community members are excited. For now, they've been very supportive in terms of even helping us move to a temporary location while we're starting to clean up the existing location for demolition. We wouldn't be able to do that without all the support of the community, but also the partners that we've partnered along the years. It's exciting as a center, but also it's a huge undertaking as a nonprofit to take this, but we know that this is what it's needed.
And I'm just even curious for yourself. We just showed the renderings of this building up on our YouTube feed here. When I imagine for a long time, it kind of seems like this vision has kind of slowly been bubbling up in your mind as you've worked there for a long time, built a sense of what the community needs. And now this kind of building is this kind of physical embodiment of all this work and all this thought. What's it like for you to see this actually coming together, this vision actually becoming reality?
This vision has been around, like we've been working towards it for the last 7 to 8 years. And to start seeing the progress and seeing some of, in October, that the existing building will no longer exist. So for us, those are a huge achievement and milestone as a nonprofit organization, but also even for our staff, right? So it will have a better environment. They will have better space to work with families, individuals that we serve. But it's been 7 years in making, and we are excited to see it coming along.
Well, Nina, thanks for your time this morning, and all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for interviewing us.
Nina Kondo is the executive director of the Elmwood Community Resource Center. And for more information about that Elmwood Hub project, you can just visit elmwoodcrc.ca. Well, time now for a little bit of music ahead of your morning sports. Winnipeg artist Ami Chan put out a new EP just this last week, and here is the title track. This is Aries, Baby.
What's your vibe? What's your deal? How you feeling? Sickles want nobody else to see. Place where we go when we're feeling free. Place just for you and a place just for me. and say something about us that I can't place. I drink you up and I don't need no chase. Give it to me, give it to me. 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 Tell me what's your sign, what's your sick. I'm an Aries, baby. I'm an Aries, baby. Crazy, 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 crazy.
That's Winnipeg's own Ami Chun with Aries Baby. Well, 7:25 now. Let's check in with Scott Regehr with a look at your morning sports. Good morning.
Hey, Corey.
So the biggest star in women's basketball plays in Canada tonight for the first time. What will you be watching for?
Well, I think, Corey, to see just how big an ovation Caitlin Clark receives from the fans in Toronto, such is her star power that the game's been moved from the Tempo's usual arena to the 21,000-seat venue the Raptors play in. And yes, it will be a sellout tonight. So what makes Caitlin Clark such a big deal? Well, she's likely the best shooter the women's game has ever seen, hitting three-point shots with the regularity Steph Curry has in the NBA. Clark's also an inventive passer, finding her teammates with the ball through openings that most players just don't see. Her preternatural skill set, Corey, says Tempo coach Sandy Brindello, is great for the league as a whole.
We've got the best players in the world here, and that's what the focus should be on, is celebrating these great players. And like, how great is it for Toronto to have the Indiana Fever in town? You know, because Caitlin, she's an amazing player, but Kelsey Mitchell's an amazing player. Leah Boston's an amazing player. It's not driven by one or two players. It's driven by all the great players in this league, and our focus should be on that.
Brindello's right. The WNBA is about much more than just Caitlin Clark, but it is tough to deny her influence on the league. The 8 most watched games on TV this season have all featured Clark's Indiana Fever, and the interest Clark's helped generate have led to both record broadcasting deals and expansion fees. Consider that the Tempo bought into the league for $50 million a few years ago, and since then expansion fees have quintupled. Something to ponder while Clark nets what will surely be multiple triples tonight.
And that said, Clark's influence on the game has become about much more than just basketball.
For sure. In the Trump era, Corey, it's next to impossible to escape politics, and Clark has found herself thrust into endless culture wars. If you type her name into social media right now, topics like homophobia, toxicity, and racism will follow. Just last month, a group of Republican lawmakers wrote a letter to WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert expressing concern that in-game fouls against Clark were racially motivated. Gino Auriemma, a 12-time national champion as coach of the University of Connecticut, says Clark is unfairly being used as a vessel for American culture wars.
She became the reason why white players get beat up in the WNBA, and she became the reason why black players don't get the adulation that white players get. Instead of it becoming Caitlin Clark gets fouled hard. No, not every foul is a good foul. Not every foul is a bad foul, but that's all they are. They are not a referendum on America, which is what the whole thing has become.
That's UConn's coach Gino Auriemma speaking on a podcast put together by sports writer Richard Deitsch. Deitsch has written an article, Corey, on Caitlin Clark that's up on our website this morning. It is a great read. Deitsch points out, among other things, Clark doesn't court attention around political issues at all, and she seldom puts a foot wrong when interviewed about very sensitive topics. And Deitsch also mentions some advice Barack Obama gave Clark not too long ago, and that is to shut out the noise and to never, ever lose the joy for the game.
Wow. Now, let's finish now with baseball, where the Blue Jays will be looking for some rare joy in Tampa tonight.
Yeah, rare is right. Historically, Corey, Toronto has done more losing in that Florida city than almost any other major league town. The Jays have lost 2/3 of the contests they've played over the years in Tampa. Meanwhile, when the Rays have played in Toronto, The results are around 500. So Toronto best sort things quickly. There's a month left in the regular season, and they're trying to fight off 6 other teams for the final wildcard spot. All of those teams, like Toronto, below 500 right now. Only 3 clubs in Major League history have ever made the postseason with the losing record before, and all of them came in shortened seasons. So what we're experiencing this year is a snail race.
Well, that seems very apt. Thank you very much there, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Regehr with your morning sports. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 7:30. Mainly clear and 13. Sunny, windy today and a high of 24. A Winnipeg man faces charges in the U.S. after police say he lied about being abducted. According to the North Dakota Highway Patrol, the 37-year-old told his family on Saturday he had been kidnapped and taken across the border by another man. Officers found him in Alexandria, Minnesota. Police say he later confessed the abduction report was false. Highway Patrol Lieutenant Jenna Clausen-Hubrights says the report had been taken seriously. She says the outcome is disappointing.
Pride ourselves on thorough investigations and doing a very thorough job to make sure that we are keeping people safe. And so it makes you feel like somebody took advantage of the system a little bit for very unknown reasons, because we don't know why somebody would do this.
Hubright says several agencies, including the FBI, worked for at least 6 hours to find the man. He's been charged with falsely reporting a crime. 3 men have pleaded guilty to various roles in a drug bust in Winnipeg that police worried had been compromised by a corrupt officer. The high-level cocaine trafficker, nightclub worker as a drug courier, and recently divorced father were investigated as part of Project Roasted. Investigators had concerns the investigation had been compromised because the suspects may have been receiving information from former Winnipeg police officer Elston Bostock. Bostock is now in prison for corruption. But before that, police searched a drug dealer's phone for proof Bostock was in communication with them. Officers found photos of Bostock with criminals and texts where they talked about Bostock giving them information. 2 of the men involved in the operation have been sentenced. Despite a near-record tornado season in Manitoba this year, the storm that hit Caddy Lake last month was likely not a tornado. The July 6th storm uprooted trees and damaged some cabins in the Whiteshell. Following an investigation, the Northern Tornadoes Project says it was an EF0 microburst. Project Director David Sills explains.
Well, the difference between a downburst or a microburst and a tornado is that with a tornado, you've got air that's moving in towards the storm at the surface, then up into the storm. With a downburst or a microburst, the air is actually originating within the storm and then falling down out of the storm towards the surface and then spreading out once it hits the surface.
The estimated wind speed of the Caddy Lake microburst is under further review. Manitoba has had well above the number of tornadoes a year that it has on average. So far, we've had 10 tornadoes, and the 30-year average is just over 8. A big community hub is in the works in northeast Winnipeg. The Elmwood Community Resource Centre plans to build 115 mixed-income, multi-family housing units. They'll be integrated with wraparound health, education, employment, and community support services, all under one roof. Executive Director Nina Kondo says this will allow residents to have access to the supports they need while living in a stable, affordable place to live. She says the Elmwood Hub will have dedicated transitional housing spaces, including a floor for young people aging out of care.
We're seeing there's more and more youth transitioning out of care who need additional, not just housing, but they need that additional services. And because we do run a youth employment program, 90% of our youth in the program are coming out of care.
Kondo says there'll also be floor apartments for survivors of gender-based violence. A project is currently in the planning and pre-development stages. Canadian officials have just 1 day left to negotiate a deal before crushing 50% tariffs are set to take effect on a host of Canadian goods. As Michelle Allen reports, the tariffs could be crushing to BC's hard-pressed forestry sector.
Richmond Plywood says they've loaded their last shipment to the U.S. The BC company says it's paused American sales. even though they're its biggest moneymaker. They're bracing for a 50% tariff on some forest products. It starts Wednesday, unless Canada and the U.S. reach a deal. Plywood is just one on a long list of tariff targets, including veneer, paper, packaging, and particle board. David Elstone is an advisor to the BC forestry industry.
It's $1 billion worth of Canadian forest products from British Columbia that are at risk here.
The U.S. already charges over 45% in cumulative tariffs on Canadian softwood lumber. Products like plywood and veneer were some of the few things that escaped these punishing tariff rates. Elstone says most of the tariff products would be hard to market elsewhere. Prime Minister Mark Carney still has a day left before the tariffs are due to take effect Wednesday. A few final hours to reach a mutually agreeable deal with U.S. President Donald Trump. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And the head coach of Winnipeg Blue Bombers says he's tremendously proud of Canada's flag football teams. The men's and women's squads qualified for the 2028 Olympics over the weekend. Mike O'Shea says he expects getting to the games will help drive support for the league.
I don't want to say envious or jealous. It's just that idea of being able to represent your country. It carries so much weight for me. I tried to tune in on the whatever channels they were on and watched a bit of it when I could. But I'm just so excited for both clubs.
The CFL and NFL players will also be able to play for their countries at the games. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News Desk. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. And let's take a look at your weather this morning. Right now in Winnipeg, sitting at 13, but we are warming up to 24 today, and you expect it to be sunny, clear, lovely all day. It is dipping down to 9 overnight, so really starting to get chilly overnight now. It will be clear for all the stargazers out there, but then tomorrow, pretty much for the next 5 days straight, Environment Canada's forecast is 25 and sunny from Wednesday right up until the end of the day on Sunday. So really lovely weather ahead for southern Manitoba. In Brandon, 8 right now. You're heading for a high of 23, dipping down to 7 overnight. You do actually have a little bit of a chance of showers tomorrow, and you're actually going to be much warmer out west. It's going to be 27 is your high tomorrow, but then sunny weather after that leading into the weekend. Steinbach right now sitting at 8, heading for a high of 24, dipping down to 8 overnight. 24 is your high tomorrow, and then sunny mid-20s ahead for the next few days. And Thompson, you're at 8 right now, warming up to 16 today with a mix of sun and cloud, dipping down to 5 overnight. And then 20 is your high for tomorrow, with a bit of rain potentially coming your way on Thursday. Let's check in now with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Not hearing about too much going on out there, but I am still keeping an eye on the stalled car that Jill called about. So she called about a stalled car on northbound Sherbrooke at Westminster. So that car was in there. It's usually 4 lanes, but obviously there's some construction happening there on northbound Sherbrooke in that area there. So a couple of the lanes are closed. So it's going to be the second lane in, which is technically that temporary curb lane at the moment. That's where that stalled car is. So you have to go left to get around that car. Might come up on you pretty quickly as you're coming off that bridge there. So stalled car on northbound Sherbrooke at Westminster in the curb lane there. So you're going to have to go left to get around it there. So far, that's really the only thing I'm keeping my eye on, but if there's something new that's popping up, I'd love to hear about it. So give me a call. This number to call is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. Well, next up here on Information Radio, everyone has the right to read. That's the long-lasting message left by the life and work of Manitoba librarian Kathy Ching, who died earlier this month after being diagnosed with ALS last year. In her career with the South Central Regional Library, Kathy acted as branch administrator of the Morden Library and she was also a library cataloger, and ended her career as the director of the SCRL. And it was during her time as director that Kathy was at the front lines of a long and public battle with calls for defunding and censorship attempts targeted at sexual education content for youth available on library shelves in the Pembina Valley. The books ultimately stayed on the shelves. Kathy Ching's advocacy for literary freedom earned her and her team the first ever Manitoba Library Association Human Rights Award. And Kirsten Werman is the program coordinator for the Manitoba Library Association and was a good friend of Kathy. And she joins us now in studio. Hi there, Kirsten.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So just tell me a little bit about your relationship with Kathy Ching. When did you first meet?
Well, I first started the job with the Manitoba Library Association about 4 years ago, and I met Kathy pretty quickly because that was right in the midst of all that turmoil. And so I had a number of meetings with her and various government officials and various folks, and I was just so impressed by her passion, her steadfastness, her real understanding and belief in the stance that she was taking and her team was taking in terms of the freedom of expression and the intellectual freedom and the right to read. And then it was probably about 6 months later that I met her in person. I had asked her to be on a panel, an in-the-field panel, to talk to library colleagues in person about their experiences. And so she and her partner in crime, Gail Hildebrandt, joined the panel. And I saw her and she greeted me with this big hug. And I had only seen her over Zoom, and she had presented always as this, this sort of freedom fighter type of person, but very calm. And so then to greet me with this big warm hug, that actually was the introduction of who Kathy really was and is for so many people. Just such a warm heart.
So fierce in the face of, public challenges, but warm.
Absolutely, because you have to present that fierceness when you have the mayor coming at you. You have people coming at you and calling you pedophiles, but she always had that big, kind heart.
Mm-hmm. And it's been so back in 2023. This is when a lot of the controversy was happening. Kathy told us that she and her staff, as you were saying, that were being confronted by angry community members at work, called quote pedophiles to their faces, and that some of her staff even considered quitting. How do you describe her leadership at that time? Of course, fierce, but there's a lot more to being a leader in those kind of circumstances.
Absolutely, and I think she portrayed this leadership even well before this whole issue presented itself. During COVID, she was this leader that really fought for the jobs for her staff. She fought for the right for the public to still get access to the books through contactless book retrieval. So she just always has been able to create a wonderful team. She's such a people person. And I was at her celebration of life on Sunday at her beautiful, beautiful home in just south of Darlingford in southern Manitoba. And there were so many people there. And it was a yard party. It was a little garden party. It was lovely. And so many people got up and talked about, we're her Brandon Wine and Women group. We've known her for 30 years. Or we're the Camp Happy group. We've known her for 50 years. We're her team at the library. She had all of these groups of friends and family, passionate people who loved her so, so much. And she just was a leader in that way. She exuded compassion, kindness, love, but also really clear direction and leadership that her staff knew that they could always count on Kathy, that she was always in their corner.
And she didn't shy actually away from bringing some levity to what was a very serious situation at the time. So can you just tell us how she used inflatable dinosaur costumes during that time?
I love this story, and it just really, I think, personifies Kathy. And so there was the Million Children March, the very first one that was going to happen. They were going to have the protest out in front of the library. There's a big park in front of the Winkler Library. And so Kathy and her staff dressed up in big dinosaur inflatable balloons costumes, and sort of were just at the front, kind of shelving books with their small little dinosaur arms, just in case protesters came into the library. And not only did Winkler do that, but her other branches did that as well. I think Morton and Altona also did it, and I think it just showcased that despite all of the challenges and the fight that they had to go through, there was still some positivity, some humor, but they were there. They were doing this, and they weren't going to be backing down, and no one could break their spirit.
And the impact of her work went far beyond just southern Manitoba as well. How do you describe the impact and the changes that she's made here in Manitoba?
Yeah, someone said after we had talked about her passing last week, they said, I can't imagine what censorship in Manitoba would look like without Kathy Ching and without her fight. Because of the person that she was, everyone felt that they could talk to her, they could approach her, they could say, actually, we're having that same problem at our library. How did you do this? And she would pick up the phone, she would talk to folks, she would talk to them about things like policy. She influenced the Manitoba Library Association. We created an intellectual freedom and anti-censorship toolkit because of those experiences. The Freedom of Expression Institute out of the Toronto Metropolitan University, because of those types of experiences, now offer a free course to public librarians about intellectual freedom. So, and she went and spoke in Saskatchewan to the Library Association. She spoke at University of Winnipeg during an event there. And she not only shared the experiences and what they learned with other libraries, she also shared the experiences with the public. The public did not really understand. I know that CBC covered it, but to actually hear the voices of Kathy and Gail to tell folks what they went through and how they fought against it was really inspiring, I think, to a lot of the public. So she definitely had a far reach. And I know even people who, librarian colleagues of mine who hadn't met Kathy, they emailed me and said, I didn't know her, but I felt like I knew her. I knew about her, and it's so sad. Yeah.
In the last minute or so here, what do you think Kathy's legacy will be, and how do you think it'll live on here in Manitoba?
Well, I think she personified this image of and personality of librarian that is so much more than books. This is a librarian full of passion, full of care, full of love for community, for inclusivity, and to really ensure that all members of the community deserve and books to read, services to have, and that the library is always a safe space for folks. And I think that is the legacy that she leaves. And may all librarians be so lucky to have such a legacy.
Well, we're lucky to have you on to come and remember Kathy. Thank you for your time this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Kirsten Werman is the program coordinator for the Manitoba Library Association and was a good friend of Kathy Ching. Kathy died earlier this month. Well, we were talking about legacy there. We're going to just switch gears now to talk about a very different but also a very memorable legacy. 10 years ago, iconic Canadian band The Tragically Hip took to the stage for the final time in their hometown of Kingston, Ontario. 1/3 of Canada's population tuned into the historic 2016 show live on CBC, and as the broadcast unfolded, the nation stood still. Lead singer Gord Downie would die of brain cancer just over a year later. And to mark the 10th anniversary on Saturday, August 22nd, 7 p.m. local time, CBC will re-air The Tragically Hip, a national celebration, commercial free. And leading up to the anniversary, we want to hear from you. Where were you the night of the final show? What did Gord Downie and The Tragically Hip mean to you? What song still floods you with emotion every time you hear it? You can call our listener line to share your story, 204-788-3205. That's 204-788-3205. 3205. We'll be compiling our favorite calls to be aired on Friday, and we'll pick one caller to get a very neat CBC mug. And we got time to play a little bit, of course, of a Tragically Hip song. Here's a few minutes now of Bob Cajun from the Tragically Hip here on CBC Radio 1.
Left your house this morning at 9:15. Could have been the Willie Nelson, could have been the one. When I left your house this morning, it was a little after 9. It was in Bob Cajun. I saw the constellations reveal themselves one star at a time. Drove back to town this morning with working on my mind. I thought I may be quitting, thought of leaving it behind. Went back to bed this morning, and as I'm pulling down the blind, yeah, the sky was dull and hypothetical and falling one cloud at a time. That night in Toronto, with its checkerboard floors, riding on horseback and keeping order restored, till the men they couldn't hang stepped to the mic and sang, and their voices rang with that Aryan twang.
That's the Tragically Hip with Bob Cajun off their 1998 album Phantom Power. You can call us, and we want you to tell us your Tragically Hip stories. What did the band mean to you? 204-788-3205. We'll play those calls on Friday. Well, up next here on the show, less than 24 hours to go until U.S. President Donald Trump's threatened 50% tariff deadline comes into effect. And the dairy has become a major sticking point in the U.S.-Canada trade negotiations. Sources have told CBC News that Canada will need to concede on dairy in any new deal. It's unclear at this point what those concessions might be, though. We do know, however, that the U.S. is not happy with how Canada uses supply management to control the amount of dairy that's produced in Canada and imported here. Under CUSMA, U.S. dairy producers have tariff-free access to about 3.9% of Canada's dairy market. So what could this mean for local producers? Henry Holtman owns Rosser Holsteins just northwest of Winnipeg, where he milks about 625 cows, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Corey.
So what would it mean to you if U.S. producers potentially get more access to the Canadian market?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit disappointed that this topic has come up again, as far as, the Canadian dairy system and access, especially since we've negotiated a deal back in Trump's previous term, for access. They gained more access and also restricted some of our exports of what we can export out of this country. So it was a significant, I think, give by the Canadian dairy industry. And here we are again, doing this once again. It was supposed to be the best deal ever, and we're still on attack. But so it's a little bit frustrating, I would say, for the most part, for dairy to be, on top of the discussion point and the access, especially since, the rules were laid out. We made that agreement. and here we are again. And it's not because we haven't been following the agreement. It's been followed. We're rule based, and it creates, I guess, a lot of volatility in our industry, and an uncertainty. And really, what we're looking for is some more predictability. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but there's a big sense of frustration that here we are again, and that's the best word I could use. Is we're very frustrated.
Are there any concessions that you could tolerate? Like, what's the most change that you think you could accept if it is inevitable that there are going to be some changes to the dairy industry when it comes to the U.S.?
Yeah, I stand united, with the rest of the ag sector, that we need a conclusion to this. But, we've been fairly clear as the dairy industry that we will not accept any more access, to our industry. We've done that in the past, overall with all the trade agreements, we have about 18% of our market, with access, with no tariffs, on the product to come into Canada. And that's fairly significant. And Americans have a share of that. So, how much more do you want to do? So our position has been, certainly no more. What are we willing to give up? We're not willing to give up anything. And that message has been clear and delivered, to the negotiating team. And, we've had also, government approval, and legislative out of C-202, as far as protecting supply management. But I think even furthermore, what's really significant is, the Canadian response, to this, and really around food sovereignty. And, Canadians want their dairy to be produced in Canada, not from the United States. So they can get variety, through the access. But, certainly I think it's really important that we maintain our sovereignty on food, and dairy is one of those topics. So my answer to that is no more access. We've done it in the past, and it's we've done our fair share as far as the supply managed sector.
This also comes during the time when people are really watching their grocery bills, and some people are you might hear arguments that to keep prices lower for consumers, maybe dairy should be subject to the free market to keep prices lower. What do you make of that argument? What's your response to that?
Well, I come back to the food sovereignty question. Of course, the Americans are 10 times larger than Canada, and we're strung out, through this narrow band with people and farming across the country from sea to sea, on its southern border. So that provides challenges. We have harder winters and so on and so forth. So I know this doesn't help, when people are looking for, cheaper food or whatever. But, the values that we find that Canadian consumers are giving to us is that they want their food produced in Canada. And we've done a very good job of that. We listen to consumers. We listen to them as far as they want high quality milk. They want a variety of products, and they want good animal care and all those values that are around a food system. And really the last thing is they don't want to be reliant on others. As far as their food supply. And I always am interested in the discussion around the free marketplace. And the free market hasn't been very helpful, when it comes to gas prices, and here we are talking about, the free market in food. Supply management is really built on making sure there's three pillars to it. And for most folks, I know they turn off when you talk about supply management, but it's fairly simple. We have quotas that we can fill as a country to fill our domestic supply, and each farm has a quota. We have import controls so that we can actually manage the cost of production and not have product come in and flood to the Canadian market. And finally, we have a cost of production, which covers, our costs, pretty basic costs at that, So, those are the three pillars of supply management. It's really about not overproducing, and that's wasteful, and not underproducing, because that's also shorting the market and consumers aren't getting what they're getting. So in a quick nutshell, I think it's a good value for the price that they pay.
Well, Henry, we'll have to leave it there. Maybe we'll touch base down the road, depending on what comes of this trade deal. So thanks for your time and giving us an understanding of where you're coming from. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Henry Holtman owns Rosser Holsteins, where he milks about 625 cows just northwest of Winnipeg. Time now to check in with Meekin Ketchison with a look at your news headlines.
Well, the Elmwood Community Resource Center is embarking on an ambitious project, transforming its current space into more than 100 housing units with wraparound services for residents. And despite near-record tornado season in Manitoba, this year a storm that hit Ketty Lake was not a tornado. We'll find out why at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Megan. Still to come here on the show, AI tech is on the rise and is increasingly being seen on the world of digital design. We're going to speak with a Winnipegger who's worked in 3D modeling for movies and video games and lost his job to AI a year ago. That's coming up after World Report. Stay tuned.
Tomorrow on Q.
Hanu Mankind broke out globally with his 2024 hit Big Dogs, but his story started much earlier at open mics in Kerala. His latest record is called Monsoon Season, and he'll be here to talk about putting Indian hip-hop on the map.
Q. Tomorrow morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Lindsay Duncombe. You might recognize actor Ben McKenzie for his role as Ryan Atwood on The OC. Now he is a prominent advocate against cryptocurrency. We'll talk to Ben McKenzie about how he became a skeptic. That's coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Mike Wise. Trade negotiators are running out of time to make an agreement. Without one, starting tomorrow, Washington will charge steep new tariffs on a long list of Canadian goods. And it's not just Canadian producers bracing for impact. Some American business owners fear they may not survive if talks fall through. Rihanna Schmunk reports.
At this point, Julia Hallman's Canadian suppliers are friends. She drove to Quebec from Massachusetts last summer to visit the brothers who make one of her best-selling cheeses. She's loyal and wants to keep their products on her shelves at her specialty food store, Formaggio Kitchen.
At the end of the day, we want to help support them and to get more money into their hands.
Hallman is waiting to hear whether the Trump administration imposes new 50% levies against hundreds of Canadian goods tomorrow. As the American importer, she's the one who gets the bill. She's managed so far by cutting profits, raising prices, or both, but she says a rate of 50% would eventually be too much to handle.
There will come a point in time when we do have to make some hard choices. And I think that's the challenge is we don't want to sacrifice the friendships that we've made. And but we also have a threshold of what we can handle as a business and what our customers are willing to pay.
Sarah Paxton is in the same boat with her store in Virginia, La Diff. The company sources contemporary furniture from Quebec and Ontario. Paxton can manage the new tariffs for a while, but not forever.
We're going to absorb something if we have to. We just can't absorb the whole thing.
The new levies would affect a long list of Canadian goods with an estimated value of more than $20 billion. Plus, Hallman says they affect the intangible relationships between importer and exporter. Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Washington.
Newfoundland and Labrador's provincial government is hailing a hydro deal inked with Quebec as a major windfall. Not only will Newfoundlanders benefit from upgrades to the electrical grid, but it also means more cash flow and opportunities to develop local industries. But not everyone is celebrating. As Cameron Kilfoy tells us, critics are asking why the province went back on promises to put the project to a referendum.
Minute one of the election that night, he promised a referendum to Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. And the purpose of that was to let Newfoundlanders and Labradorians know that they would have a say in any deal going forward.
That's John Hogan, Newfoundland and Labrador's Liberal leader, speaking about Premier Tony Wakeham's decision to no longer hold a referendum on a new Churchill Falls deal.
And now here he is, after saying he didn't believe in deadlines, and now he does believe in deadlines, and he believed in referendums, and now he doesn't believe in referendums. It makes it difficult to trust what he says in the future.
He says he's pleased to see the long-awaited deal on Churchill Falls, but feels it was rushed due to a looming election in Quebec.
We certainly hope we didn't give anything away. We'll look forward to reading the details and look to see that we didn't give anything away just because Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec is up against the tight timeline in Quebec.
The new 50-year power deal will see upgrades to the existing Churchill Falls plant, increasing its capacity, the two provinces developing Gull Island, and building of a new transmission line. The Innu Nation is also ensuring their voices will be heard. Jody Ashini, Grand Chief, says her focus is seeing Indigenous rights at the forefront of any deal.
We can work together with the province and the federal government in Quebec to ensure that this is a deal that's going to be prosperous for the Innu and for future generations.
Both Newfoundland and Labrador and Quebec's government hope to finalize a deal by the end of the year. Cameron Kilfoy, CBC News, St. John's.
There has been another deadly school shooting in the Philippines. Ambulances rushed to help the injured in the southern city of Zamboanga. Police say one student is dead after another student opened fire inside the campus. Officials say the suspect was live streaming the attack before he took his own life. This is the Philippines' second school shooting in just 2 months. 2 other people were wounded. The alleged shooter has been identified as a grade 9 student and the son of a Bureau of Customs police commander. The Bureau's deputy commissioner says one of the 2 guns used in the attack was a government-issued pistol. He is recommending temporarily suspending the commander, who may face charges for failing to properly safeguard the weapon. In northeast Ukraine, emergency workers cover the bodies of those killed in an overnight missile strike. At least 10 people are dead. Several others were injured in what the country's president describes as an attack on a busy residential and business area. In a post online, Volodymyr Zelensky vows to respond to Russia's attack. In Moscow, officials say Ukrainian forces carried out one of their largest drone strikes since the war began. Russia has issued a warning to the UK government, accusing it of supplying drones to Kyiv. Moscow is warning London that there will be consequences. CBC News has learned that a lead instructor at a children's hockey camp this summer previously pleaded guilty to assaulting children. The Ontario police officer worked with kids for much of the summer despite his conviction. As the CBC's Christian Davino reports, Ontario law does not require summer camps to conduct mandatory background checks on staff.
Bradley Gibbs is a Durham Regional Police Officer. He also worked at Kale Hockey Camp in Lindsay, Ontario, despite pleading guilty earlier this year to assaulting 2 kids known to him. The charges span about a decade and are unrelated to his work at the camp or as an officer. But one victim, who is now an adult, called for the camp to remove Gibbs. We've altered their voice due to a court-ordered publication ban.
If I sent my kid to one of those camps, I would be really concerned.
The camp said Gibbs would be stepping down in an email to parents after CBC News reached out. The camp wouldn't comment further as the case is before the courts. But Puneet Tiwari, a Toronto employment lawyer, warns it still highlights a major issue for the province.
There's really nothing that can be done other than parents demanding a refund or pulling their kids.
In Ontario, vulnerable sectors checks, which include criminal background checks, aren't mandatory for all camp workers, though many organizations require them voluntarily.
This is a big gap in the legislation.
The Ontario Camps Association mandates its 400 camps to do those checks, but one of the OCA's board directors, Rankin Middlebrook, says its standards stop there.
We don't have anything that says if you have a criminal employ a staff member with a criminal record, you must do X, Y, and Z.
The association is voluntary to join, and KL Hockey is not a member. While the Ministry of Education does license camps for kids 4 and under, it says anything else is out of its jurisdiction. Ontario Solicitor General also did not respond to questions about potential legislation. Meanwhile, Gibbs remains in an administrative role with Durham Police. He is scheduled to be sentenced for the assaults next month. Christian Davino, CBC News, Lindsay, Ontario.
A federal court in California will hear opening arguments today in a major case against social media giant Meta. Attorneys general for California, Colorado, Kentucky, and New Jersey are suing. They allege the company purposely designed its apps to be addictive for children and illegally harvested their data. Over 24 other states are also preparing similar lawsuits. Meta says it is proud of its protections for underage users and looks forward to making that case in court. The company could face damages totaling more than $1 trillion. Well, tonight, nearly 20,000 spectators will pack into Toronto's Scotiabank Arena. They'll be there to watch basketball star Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. The team will take on Canada's only WNBA team, the Toronto Tempo. As Jennifer Yoon reports, the excitement underscores a pivotal moment for women's basketball.
It's going to be a full house. Some Torontonians might be cheering against their WNBA team tonight at a home game, but Tempo coach Sandy Brondello's still excited. For the first time on Canadian soil, basketball superstar Caitlin Clark will be taking to the court.
Caitlin's going to get a lot of cheers. I love it, even as a Tempo coach here.
Clark, who plays for the Indiana Fever, has been pivotal in making women's basketball more popular. Her games draw huge viewership and drive massive ticket sales. With more eyes on the court tonight, the pressure is on for the Tempo, says Brondello.
We're in front of our home fans, but now we've got all eyes on us being a national televised game.
But it could be a tough match for the Toronto Tempo. The team has just finished a 10-match loss streak. The last time the Tempo took on the Fever in June, Indiana beat Toronto 113-91.
We'll try to slow her down as much as we can.
Toronto Tempo guard Marina Mabry bracing for a hard fight against Clark and her teammates, even as she speaks glowingly of her opponent.
She's a great scorer, great passer, great playmaker.
As WNBA stars like Clark and the franchise reach record popularity, they're also getting pulled into intense, broader conversations, including on gender and identity. Tempo coach Brondello hoping fans can stay focused on the game.
We've got the best players in the world here, and that's what the focus should be on.
The game tips off at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jennifer Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is your latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Well, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Happy Tuesday, and what a beautiful Tuesday it's going to be here, at least in southern Manitoba. Actually, northern Manitoba as well. 14 degrees right now, heading for a sunny high of 24. Well, coming up this half hour on the show, we're going to hear from a Winnipegger who used to work in 3D modeling for movies and video games, but recently lost his job to AI. He'll talk about what he's been seeing within the industry and what he expects the future of digital design to look like and how he's managed to pivot. That story coming up right here on Information Radio. Stay tuned. It's 8:11 right now. Let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, good morning. A Winnipeg man faces charges in the U.S. after police say he lied about being abducted. According to the North Dakota Highway Patrol, the 37-year-old told his family on Saturday he had been kidnapped and taken across the border by another man. A North Dakota Highway Patrol lieutenant says several agencies, including the FBI, worked for at least 6 hours to find the man. And 3 men have been convicted in a drug trafficking case after an investigation that Winnipeg police once feared had been compromised by one of their own. We'll find out more coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, as mentioned, beautiful day ahead. 14 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks, heading for a high today of 24. It is going to dip down overnight to 9, so really starting to see that fall-like chill overnight. Warming up, though, again to 25, and the forecast for the next 5 days straight is 25 and sunny is the high. And up north, well, right now in Thompson, it's 8, warming up to 16 today, mix of sun and cloud, dipping down to 5 overnight, and then Wednesday, your high will be 20. And that's really the case for much of Manitoba. Clear, sunny during the day, cooler and clear at night. Well, let's check in now with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. It's been a pretty slow day on the CBC commuter line. I haven't gotten too many calls, which to me sounds like your drive is going pretty smoothly out there, but I want to let folks know about a little traffic alert here. Eastbound and westbound Wolseley Avenue, the multi-use path is closed at Oman Park Rail Crossing for rail construction from today, the 18th, until Friday, the 21st. So you want to follow the detour via Portage Avenue, the underpass there. So eastbound and westbound Wolseley Avenue, the multi-use path is closed at Oman Park Rail Crossing for construction from today until Friday. So you want to follow that detour via the Portage Avenue overpass. We still have a little bit of time left in the show, though, so if there's something you want to let me know about here, give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, if you've been on the internet lately, it's not hard to see that AI is increasingly playing a role in digital design and animation. It can be seen in posters, infographics, commercials, and more. And this change has prompted some concern over AI replacing some jobs in the digital design industry. Well, we're going to talk to someone now with firsthand experience. Devin Arison has worked in 3D modeling and lighting for video games and movies, including past projects for Netflix animated movies and TV shows. But about a year ago, he lost his job with the most recent company he worked for. And he says it's because of the increasing reliance on AI in his industry. Devin joins me now in studio to talk about how he's been seeing AI used in the field of digital design. Good morning, Devin.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So just before we kind of talk about, the impact AI had on your job, just tell me a little bit what your job was and what it involves. You're a 3D modeler and lighter. What does that all entail?
So a 3D modeler, if you've ever played a video game or watched a 3D movie like Shrek or anything like that, all of those images that you see on screen are made out of 3D models. You make them and you kind of sculpt them in the same way that you would maybe make something out of like clay or manufacture like a piece, on like a vehicle or, whatever have you, right? In this case, it's just kind of making it in 3D and designing it for the projects that we use them on. And ultimately, in this case, it's entertainment.
Any well-known characters or models that people might recognize that you've designed?
I wasn't a character modeler, so okay. I couldn't tell you that. But
or any car? What's your one of the things you're most proud of making?
Oh, that's a good question. There was a really cool dungeon set that me and a colleague of mine had worked on a project called Maya and the Three. It was a TV show, like a limited series on Netflix. And it was really fun. Like there was so many interesting surfaces and stuff like that. Tons of sculpted rocks and statues and all that sort of stuff. And it was an absolute blast.
Oh, cool. Okay, we'll have to watch the show to see what that looks like. So when did you first start seeing AI kind of becoming part of your job or doing parts of your job?
So I was actually quite lucky. I wasn't really one of the ones that had AI. I didn't really use AI much. And I didn't see it a ton at my previous job, or for my position at least. But what I did start to see is I started to see that a lot of the kind of filler work was starting to be replaced. Like as an example, in the showcase, they were showing to our company that you can animate these minor facial animations. And this is all stuff that it's a lot of busy work for sure. But just an example like that, somebody still has to kind of do that, right? Even if it's a little bit monotonous, that is still somebody's job. And we did see some more interesting tools too, some AI, just general tools that would take on just tasks that were monotonous in general. But again, somebody has to do that, right?
So it seemed like something that at a time maybe there was some potential that AI would actually enhance your work, maybe let you focus on other things instead.
Yeah. Okay. And it was used for a lot of minor stuff, a lot of placeholder items, stuff that the developers on the game that we were working on could use to develop the game while we were working on the final art, right? We start to see that in the beginning, but then we started to start to see some AI voice acting was a big one, and obviously I'm not a voice actor, but that still affects people, right? So yeah.
But eventually, obviously, now you did lose your job to the AI. When did that happen and why? But tell me a little bit about that.
So about a year ago, the company I was working for, their priorities changed a little bit. I don't know if I'm at liberty to say exactly why, but their priorities had changed, and they decided to get rid of a majority of the creative staff. So all of those modelers, all of this textures, anybody working on the game level, they removed them. They kept a couple artists in higher level positions, but from my understanding, it was they were to kind of use AI to kind of fill in any gaps that they had after laying a bunch of people off, right?
And what through your mind when you heard that you had lost your job to AI?
I wasn't surprised. It was a little bit disappointing, I think. I could kind of see the writing on the wall again, just with some of the tools that I talked about earlier. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed to see that, because you never think it's going to happen to you, and like you hear about like all of these other companies in like elsewhere, like Vancouver, Toronto. You hear them using AI heavily, and you think, oh well, that's all the way over there. It would never happen to like some Winnipeg boy, right? But unfortunately, that was just kind of the case.
And how big of a trend is this? Like, how have you kind of taken a good look at the industry itself? Like, how many people are in your situation having lost their jobs because of AI?
The creative industry and like game development industry, animation industry, visual effects industry was already in a pretty rough spot. So a lot of them I wouldn't necessarily were lost to AI, but the problem is a lot of the rehiring was stunted because of AI, right? Because when I was looking through jobs, you would see a lot of posting for AI like an AI generator, right? Somebody who can train AI, etc. And like a lot of those people, like a lot of the people who have lost their jobs have very much struggled trying to get back in, because a lot of companies are starting to take on AI, or people to use AI, right? Yeah.
And we're going to talk about how you pivoted just right away here. But first, I even want to ask, how has this made you feel about AI in general, and its general application and its role in society now that you've been directly impacted by it?
Well, I think it's kind of, I mean, I was always kind of off-put by AI to start with. I think it's just kind of, again, just a little bit disappointing, right? Like, I want to be excited about new technology, because new technology is exciting. There's for the longest time, whenever there would be like a new technology, like a brand new phone or a, new function on your computer, like that was really exciting. But now it just kind of seems as if it's there to take people's jobs, save money, and it doesn't exist for the consumer anymore. It only exists for, super wealthy people. And yeah, it's just very disappointing.
And so now you have had to pivot just to actually an entirely different field. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm pivoting now. I kind of saw the writing on the wall with my last industry. So I'm actually going to back to school. I'm going to be a teacher. That is my plan. I'm going to teach, hopefully, elementary school or, whatever kind of hires me. I'm, excited at the idea of maybe teaching art, social studies, those are kind of my jams. So
how long did it take you to decide to be a teacher? Was there at least a little bit of hope for a while that you could find work somewhere else in the industry? Or did you kind of give up right away as soon as you were laid off?
So I kind of pivoted a little bit. To start off with, I was kind of thinking maybe drafting would be like a logical next step, just because like, you can shift over like a lot of the 3D modeling techniques. But eventually got to a point where I realized that maybe this wasn't for me. My parents, both of them worked in education. They're retired now. My dad was an EA and my mom was a teacher. So I grew up seeing the stability of those careers. And, they lived they had a great career. They lived a happy life. We had a great childhood. And I realized that like for my future, something that's maybe a little bit more stable, for both myself and like my fiance, I realized that like that's kind of something that we wanted in life. I wanted in life, and it's just kind of the life I want to give to my kids, right?
Mm-hmm. Have you found a way to scratch that artistic itch though?
Yes, I do. I am a miniature painter. I paint Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons models, like little itty bitty model kits and everything. So that is my kind of thing right now.
That's good. But I am still curious though. I mean, as someone who worked in the industry, and I imagine there's probably lots of people, lots of kids who love art, who who love working with art online and would still love to build a career in that. I mean, you objectively had one of those cool jobs.
Yeah,
you
right?
I want to design. All the kids grow up. I want to design video games. I want to work in movies when I grow up, and that's what you had. If there's for a kid these days with that same dream, I'm not asking you to crush that dream, but what's your message to people who want to work in the arts and in film and in the creative industry in general, with AI being an obvious reality?
Yeah, so I would say if you're wanting to get into film, games, etc., I think you should learn those tools on your own. Blender and like all these other tools, these 3D softwares, they are free and as accessible as they have ever been. They're wonderful to use. Again, they take a little bit of practice, but I say learn that. But learn that on your own time. I would not go to school for it. I would self-teach. I would learn it on your own. But I would also make sure to have a backup plan and have something that's maybe a little bit more marketable, maybe something a little bit more safe. But again, that's the nice thing about art is you don't necessarily need to get paid to do it. You can do it because you love it, and you absolutely should. Again, these tools are so accessible. You can learn Unreal Engine, you can learn Blender. I say do it, but just make sure it's not your only choice.
And maybe try to be like an independent contractor, not necessarily try to work for a big company.
Yeah, well, and then there's also that too. Independent contracting can be a little bit difficult, especially one thing with AI is computers are very expensive now, right? Like each piece costs hundreds more dollars because they're building data farms. So even independent contracting, I would be like a little bit weary of, but if it comes up, absolutely do it, 100%.
Are you worried about just the state of art in general as AI makes its way?
Yes and no. I think I'm worried about the industry, like the 3D industry and like the creative arts industry. But art itself, I always believe that like individuals will find their way to do it. If somebody finds it cool, somebody wants to do it, they will do it. And I think that's just kind of the spirit of art in general is just do it. Who cares what, who cares if it's not profitable? Who cares if it, isn't the most optimal thing to do? Just do it.
Well, Devin, we'll leave it there. Thanks for taking some time and all the best in your new pivot.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Devin Arison is a former 3D modeler and lighter for movie and video game animation. He lost his job not long ago due to AI.
You know the voices that tell the story of our province. Now you can take them anywhere. From the essential start to your day on information radio to the conversations that define our lunch hour on Radio Noon and the pulse of the city on Up to Speed, your local connection is always within reach. Just open the CBC News app, tap the local drop-down, and hit play. Your favorite voices, your province, right in your pocket. Download the CBC News app today, your daily rhythm, live and local.
Well, as we've been talking about throughout the show, the tension is mounting in Ottawa and across the country as the clock counts down to Donald Trump's threatened trade deadline. The U.S. president has said he'll impose punishing new tariffs on Canadian goods if both sides can't agree to a new trade deal by tomorrow. And for his thoughts, CBC reached out to Ujjal Dosanjh. He's a former Liberal MP and former Premier of British Columbia.
Well, I mean, we're dealing with perhaps the most irrational U.S. administration ever. It is very difficult to make sense of anything that Mr. Trump has been doing on the trade file or any other files, generally speaking. Therefore, you are in a very difficult circumstances dealing with trade negotiations. And, Mr. Trump started this war and our provinces and the federal government responded, and now they want our actions that we took, some of them withdrawn, like the ban on liquor, American liquor sales. You're dealing with a bully and you're dealing with a trading partner that is much stronger than you are as a country. They are much stronger in terms of the economy than we are. We are a smaller economy compared to theirs. So the provinces and the Prime Minister, at the end, you have to decide whether it's better to give in a little to gain more, or to stick to our guns on the liquor issue. If you see that they would not proceed with the 50% tariffs, and we are on the way to getting CUSMA renegotiated successfully, I would advise the Prime Minister and the provinces to give in a little on the liquor issue. It's not an issue. It's not a hill to die on for me. If we can see that we are moving towards a good CUSMA renegotiated deal, and the Americans wouldn't proceed with the 50% tariffs. You can't, Prime Minister and the President can't negotiate on 20 different issues in a trade agreement. That's just not done. It's the trade negotiators that deal with these issues and report to their bosses, who in the end make decisions. And therefore, I think that the best the Prime Minister could do, if he's able to get Mr. Trump off his hobby horse of 50% new tariffs. And if he can get that and get by some time for more negotiations, that would be a win.
That was Ujjal Dosanjh speaking with CBC News. As for when the new tariffs might come into effect if a deal is not reached, it could be as soon as 12:01 a.m. tomorrow. And that's the time Trump set 1 month ago in the document that outlines his tariff threat. We're obviously going to have coverage of all that on cbc.ca. Well, let's check in now with Marjorie Dowhouse, host of Radio Noon, about what the call-in is today. Hello.
Hi, Corey. Well, we know that food brings people together. So
does.
today on the call-in, we're asking you, how has food helped you build a community? And we're talking about this because we're going to speak with the manager of a restaurant in Somerset, Manitoba. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this story. They started out with a challenge to attract people from 60 different towns in 60 days. They exceeded that. Their goal was now 200.
Wow.
But it's not just Manitoba. People from around the world have been coming to the restaurant. Yeah. So we're going to learn more about that. We're also going to have a food influencer who's built a community online, because a lot of people do find communities through social media. So the question we're asking you today, how has food helped you build a community?
Love that. You can call into Radio Noon this afternoon noon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey.
That is Marjorie Dowhouse, the host of Radio Noon. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 8:30. Partly cloudy and 14. Sunny and windy today with a high of 24. 3 men have been convicted in a drug trafficking case after an investigation that Winnipeg police once feared had been compromised by one of their own. The CBC's Caitlin Gowriluck has more.
A high-level cocaine trafficker, a nightclub owner working as a drug courier, and a recently divorced father who agreed to stash crack cocaine in his home. All charged in a Winnipeg police investigation called Project Roasted that officers once feared had been compromised. Former Constable Elston Bostock is now in prison for corruption. But before that, police searched a drug dealer's phone for proof Bostock was communicating with them. Officers found photos of Bostock with criminals and texts where they talked about Bostock giving them information. 2 of the men involved in the drug operation have been sentenced, while the one who prosecutors say sparked the investigation is expected back in court for sentencing next year. Caitlin Gowriluck, CBC News, Winnipeg.
North Dakota police are disappointed someone took advantage of their resources to find an abducted person who was not abducted at all. According to police, a Winnipeg man had reported that he was kidnapped and brought across the U.S.-Manitoba border on Saturday. Authorities found the men in Alexandria, Minnesota. They say the alleged victim later admitted to have falsely reported the abduction. Lieutenant Jenna Clausen Hubrights is with the North Dakota Highway Patrol. She says highway cameras, license plate readers, and officers from several organizations were used to locate the man.
It is really unfortunate because that's a lot of resources, and all those resources are diverted from other things. All those law enforcement agencies and partners were working on different investigations and different things that they stopped doing to work on this specific case since it rose to the top.
The 37-year-old man is facing charges in Minnesota for falsely reporting a crime. The Elmwood Community Resource Center is embarking on an ambitious project, transforming its current space into more than 100 housing units with wraparound services for residents. Executive Director Nina Kondo says their existing spaces were over capacity. So rather than grow outward, it will build upward with housing upstairs from an expanded community center. Kondo says some agencies in Winnipeg already offer housing and services under one roof, but she says this will have much more.
The difference for us is that we're adding the culture component, we're adding some recreational lens, but also it's the medical lens, the health and wellness piece, where we will have a medical team in the building supporting us.
The project is currently in the planning stages. In the Northwest Territories, mothers-to-be won't be able to give birth this week at Inuvik Regional Hospital. That's because it doesn't have the staff. And the head of the National Association of Obstetricians and Gynecologists says it will take more than money to fix the problem. Niles Nemeth explains.
The suspension of birthing services is expected to last until Sunday, with patients redirected to Yellowknife. Dr. Nicholas Leland is the president of the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists of Canada. He says what's happening in the NWT is an expression of a broader crisis in Canada's healthcare system.
Chronic underfunding of healthcare, high burnout levels, early retirement among specialists, and a steep decline in family physicians providing maternity care, as well as shortages of specialized labor and delivery nurses.
This has been a recurring issue in the territory. Inuvik lost birthing services for 4 months in 2024, and Yellowknife lost services for 3 months starting in December 2022. The territorial health system is offering generous benefits in an effort to recruit short-term doctors to Inuvik. A social media advertisement says doctors will get premium rates for August and select dates over the holidays in December and January. There's also a $20,000 incentive for those who complete 75 shifts in a year. Niles Nemeth, CBC News, Yellowknife.
This tornado season in Manitoba has been more active than normal. The Northern Tornadoes Project is investigating a number of storms in this province this summer. David Sills is the project director.
In Manitoba, we're up to 10 tornadoes, and the 30-year average for Manitoba is 8.5. So middle of August, and it's already higher than average. So in Manitoba, it's been more active than typical, and across the prairies, certainly it's been more active than normal.
The Tornadoes Project also confirmed 5 downbursts in Manitoba this season. One of those, known as a microburst, uprooted trees at Caddy Lake in the Whiteshell on July 6th. And when flag football rolls into the Olympics in 2 years, some countries may have active NFL or CFL players on their roster. Winnipeg Blue Bombers receiver Nick Dembski says it's something he would consider, but it's still a while away.
I think any time you get to compete on a national stage for your country, I think it's a great opportunity. That's something that I kind of told those guys too. It's like, I play professional football, but you guys have the opportunity to go out there and do it for the flag on your back.
Dembski's former offensive coordinator Paul LaPolice is coaching Canada's men's team. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks for the morning, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Sierra Sanders is in now with a final look at your commute.
Yeah, Corey, been a pretty quiet commute overall, but just a note to folks, eastbound and westbound Wolseley Avenue, the multi-use path is closed at Omond Park Rail Crossing for rail construction from today until August 21st, this Friday, I should say. So you want to make sure to follow the detour via Portage Avenue, that underpass there.
Thank you very much, Sierra.
Thank
14 you. Right now in Winnipeg at the Forks, heading for a high today of 24. Sunny and mid-20s is the forecast for the next 5 days or so here in Winnipeg. So lovely weather ahead. Big thanks to our associate producers, Emily Enns and Chloe Friesen and Kaylin Monkman for putting our show together today, as well as our news team, Megan Ketchison, Joni Nicolou, Darren Bernhardt, and Alana Cole, and our live team, Jenica Sewell, Darren Morash, and Sierra Sanders. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Coming up next, The Current. Have a good one.